Horizon Thundersphere! Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Hello. It's so late, it's early. What's up? We have entered a time flux, time paradox shift perspective, and I blame it all on Sunday's The One Ring stream. And you may be saying, Derek, what One Ring stream on Monday or Sunday? Well, we did a Patreon only stream, and it was, to be fair, it was about 50% technical demo, literally like us adjusting settings, getting audio working. But we were streaming while we were doing it just to have fun and hang out with our patrons. But then we talked about The One Ring a little bit, and then we even played a scene or two, which was a lot of fun. But I had a lot to do to get ready for that, as one does. So I had woken up extra early on Sunday, and I probably only got about 5 hours of sleep. And And by extra early, I mean like, 9 a.m. But, I went to bed at like 4 a.m. So I got up late on Sunday. Or sorry, got up early on Sunday, was running around. And then I had the boys over in the middle of the afternoon, and we played One Ring, and we had fun. And around 7:30, they left. And then I got something to eat. And then I fell asleep on the couch with the dogs probably around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And I took what most people would call going to bed early. But I don't really do going to bed early. And I was on the couch. So I woke up about 1 a.m. after about a 4-hour nap, but like in like, the middle of the night. So at that point, I was already like, oh no. So Monday started off with me getting up at 1 a.m. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be, I'll go back to bed. So, I putzed around for a little bit, hopped on the Discord, and I went back to bed around 3 a.m. Did not get back to sleep. So at about 5:30, 6 a.m., I said, screw it. I guess I'll just start my day and I'll just have a normal Monday. I know I'm not streaming yesterday. Bob's streaming with his brother. Whatever. I'll take a rest today. So I got up early. I went to the grocery store early, went to the PetSmart to get food for the dogs. And then I went over to Starbucks, got some coffee, and, started my day totally normally. And it's Monday, and I usually play racquetball on Monday around 5:30. So went through my day and went to the grocery store and came back, and whatever, had other stuff. So then around 4 o'clock, I text my buddy and I say, hey, and he works, he's a manager of a fish distribution, a fishmonger. So the holidays are pretty busy for them, seafood and stuff. And so I texted him and I said, hey, what time do you want to meet up at the gym to play racquetball? 5:30 or 6. And he had mentioned he might be a little late. And he said, can't do it, 0%. He's like, I still have, like 8 trucks or whatever that need to go out. And I said, okay, so, all right, no racquetball. All right, what am I going to do? So I was like, okay, well, I guess I have my evening available to me. And, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock came around and I was like, oh, I guess I'll just take a little bit of a nap. I guess I am a little bit tired since I didn't get much sleep last night. And I laid down to go to sleep at 6. And normally, to take a nap. And then what happened? Well, I fell asleep at 6 and I woke up at like 2 a.m. And so it's just completely, it's completely a channel. Self-confessed says, the fuck are these lights so bright for? They're the normal brightness. There. Is that better? Let's go full blowout. There we go. Anyways, this is actually my key light off. So you actually can see this is my lighting setup with just my fill light and with my hair kicker. So this is my lighting setup with just my rim light, right? My rim light, my kicker light, my hair light. People have different names for it, but this is just my lighting with just that. And of course, obviously, the only reason I'm not completely black is because my screen is white. See, there we go. That's with my monitor not having a white screen up. Now it's Derek After Dark. What's actually really impressive here is that my camera is still focused. So there we go. There's a little bit. This is the highly dramatic Derek. Welcome to the dark side. Everything is kicker. This is the real Kickster. Streams in the dark. Well, yeah, but it's morning over in Europe. So, and it's like the first full day of summer over in Australia. To be clear, in the industry, we would call this a very dramatic lighting. And in fact, actually, this is actually a pretty good example. Let's see if I can get it right. So you see this triangle of light underneath my eye? So, all right, do you see the catch? So this is so the light is right here, obviously. And you can see the little things in my eyes. Those are called catch lights. And catch light means that the eye, right? There's an angle of incidence from the light to your thing. So you can see that if I turn my eye too much, this eye goes into complete darkness. But if I bring it back just enough, you can start to see the catch light. And you can see there's a little triangle of light right here. Now, see, if I go over too much, you lose that triangle of light. Now, obviously, if I come over so much, it's this really, the whole side of my face starts to become illuminated. But if I do it just right, there's this little bit of triangular light. And this type of lighting is called Rembrandt lighting, because this is the way that Rembrandt painted. And it's considered very, very posh for portraiture. And so a lot of lighting experts will try very hard to do this. And the reason that we're getting this light right now is because I added a grid to my key. So my key is now gridded, which basically means it's a little bit more, I don't want to use the term focused, so I'll use the term directional. Anyways, I'll get a little bit of Phil. And my buddy Phil. There we go. Horsemanship, underrated. And also 90% of magic abilities are basically just a form of kicker. Horsemanship, it's better to just say it's shadow, Haldred. It's actually pretty much analogous to shadow, I think. I don't exactly remember what horsemanship does. Anyways, there we go. A little bit more moody. So, hey, well, good luck. I think you'll be fine. I think you'll do wonderful. I'm sure you'll have a deal of fun. Just remember, Tomasz, Daggerheart is what do you want from me? All right. You're not leaving me alone. This is some half-assed moodiness. What else do you want from me? The colored lights are all put away. I don't have my colored lights available. Oh, you want the rim light only? Okay. All right, I need a little bit of a key because otherwise my camera literally can't focus. There we go. Oh, you know what we can't do? Hold on. Yeah, Vin woke up and chose violence. That's well said. All right, there we go. All right, is that maximum moody? Welcome. The darkness is within you. Luke, I am your father. Actually, it's no, I'm your father. I know.
Dungeons and Dragons. Satan's game.
Now we're talking. Yeah, it is Christmas time. This is true. Also, let's see if I can. There we go. We can put that back there. Just this nice little. Okay. I was going to say it's a fiction first game. All that means is that, don't worry about the mechanics too much. Just, follow your principles and do the right thing, and you'll be fine. There. So true story. When I was building my last computer, which I bought last year before the RAM prices went insane, which was designed to replace the streaming PC, which had which died in the fire. I deliberately bought all components that do not have any RGB because I hate RGB in PC cases. Yeah, you're right. We'll have to make some moody Shadow Dark stuff here. Half of my Vampire the Masquerade plays literally looks like this. That's hilarious. Vin appreciated that we were full in. We'll have more fun with lights and stuff. Again, this is also one of the reasons why I bought all these lights. I can control all these lights remotely. I could control them with Stream Deck. And so by putting them all over the studio, we should be able to have some fun lighting effects and stuff. Which would be fun. Oh my God, I'm so underexposed right now. It's like bothering me. All right, I need at least 10%. There we go. 10-3. What's up, Lord of Aces? A real question. Completely unrelated to the lights. Just yesterday, I was listening to Quinn's. Awesome. I am so mad. Well, mad. I don't get starstruck, but I've been watching Quinn's on Shut Up or Sit Down for years, for a decade. He was at PAX, and I saw him walking around, and I would, I'm not going to go bother him because he's busy. He's just there. He wasn't there as a guest or anything. I think he was just there to hang out, and he might have been doing some stuff, but anyways, he didn't have like a panel or anything. He was just hanging out. And I saw him, and I wanted to go over there and say hi to him, but I just didn't. But anyways, Lord of Aces says that Quinn's was lamenting about how there aren't enough successful RPG reviewers on the platform. And yeah, but that's because, I don't want to be mean to Quinn's, but we don't all have like a $20,000 a month Patreon. That supports us, and allows us to do that kind of stuff. So, again, full, no cap. Quinn's model is 10,000% what I would love to do. I think that's what everybody would love to do, where he picks a game that he's legitimately interested in, that has maybe been interested in for a while. Could be an old game that no one's ever heard of. Could be a new game that just came out. And then he learns the game. He sits down. He plays the game. He does an actual, enough sessions that I would say it's a short campaign, but it's a campaign. Plays it, and then sits down, puts in a lot of effort to make a very well edited, very informative, not short, but not hyper long. It's, call it an hour. Review video, truly based off of playing it, other people's experiences, a known test group, the group he's played with. So it's not like one of those, well, maybe I was playing with people I just didn't understand their likes or their dislikes. No, he knows his group, and then makes this video and he publishes. Great. And how many of those does he do a year? 4 to 6, something like that, maybe 7. He does a couple minor things here and there, but most of us could never get away with that. So obviously his views aren't providing any income, but views don't really provide any income to anybody. But for most people, you either have to be getting sponsorships or getting tips or getting, that kind of constant feed in order to get people to support you, especially monetarily. Quinn's just, it's not like he got lucky. He put in an incredible shitload amount of sweat equity with Shut Up, Sit Down. But it's not like Shut Up, Sit Down was some struggling channel either. And to be completely honest with you, I like Shut Up and Sit Down despite their lame attempts at humor. I actually thought when they would do the little skits and stuff, it was horrible, and I would always skip it. But I stuck around because I thought their reviews were very well written. They used a lot of great language, and they pretty much got to the real. And in fact, if anything, sometimes I think they were a little light sometimes on the actual mechanics of the game, believe it or not. But they usually got to really good about like what made them excited about the game and how did the game feel when they were playing it, which I thought was also very valuable. But yeah, so anyways, I would love to do that. That would be the most amazing thing in the world. But, you know, you can't do that. So, I mean, I don't think you can. So, which is why Quinn's goes and runs 10 to 15 sessions of full sessions of the game. So, I mean, he's doing what I would consider to be a real campaign. He's really playing it. And Vince says, are RPG reviews actually all that useful? First looks at how-tos are where it's at for me. So there is a point to be made here, which is RPGs are very different than video games. Where video games, you could reasonably be expected to play. Hell, you might be able to play 2 or 3 new video games a month. I'm sure there's people out there who play way more than that. And it's a solo activity. RPGs are like pulling teeth. You have to get a group together. You have to learn the group game. You have to get everybody to buy into the game. And then by the time you sit down and play it, you're trying to go through it. So, when you do these really highly, deeply in-depth reviews of a game, that's great and all. And you might only get a couple of them per year, but RPGs are so subjective, and you might do a great review and you're just like, this is a wonderful review, but it's pointless to me because I don't care. I don't care about the game. So, yes, my first look. Now, ironically, my first look's obviously now from the total time invested, Quinn's is spending many, many hundreds of hours because he's playing the game and reviewing the game and whatnot. Kyle says he's got a hell of a group to pull that off then. All right, Kyle, imagine this. Hey, Kyle, I'm going to pay you a few $1,000s a month to come play games with me. Are you in? I think, we're going to play twice a week. You think if I threw you, I don't know, say $2,000 a week, you'd be interested? My guess is you would be, or $2,000 a month or whatever, $3,000 a month. Would you be interested? I think you would say, yeah. I think you would say, yeah. Again, I would have, Bob, I don't think Bob's boss watches this, so it doesn't matter. But, Bob and I were talking, and he was talking about, we were talking about his career and stuff. And he was saying, he's not really sure, what he wants to do. And obviously he'd like to make more money, but he also, would love to be able to have more time at home. And, his boss is one of those kind of old school people who doesn't really like him working from home and stuff like that. And so, he values that. And then he basically said something like, I've been secretly waiting. Basically, Bob said something like, not secretly, but, because it's not like we've never talked about it. But Bob's like, I'm still waiting for you to, do a $1 million Kickstarter and then just hire me full time or something like along those lines. And I was like, buddy, I would love to do that. I would love to do that. Just bring you on, hire you online and have you, come and work for me. And we could just, do stuff for gaming and do stuff for the Discord, the Patreon and all that other stuff. That'd be awesome. But yeah, we're waiting. We're still waiting for that. Kyle says, sign me the hell up. Exactly. So Sandy says, yeah, I don't care for 2 in-depth reviews. If anything is going to be in-depth, I'd rather follow someone reading along the book, which kind of is what we end up doing, I guess, in our first looks. But the downside of the first look is I don't have any practical experiences playing that game. I can read a game, and I've read a lot of RPGs. I've played a lot of RPGs, and that gives me a pretty good basis. But at the same time, I don't have. I would hesitate to say that I can really tell you what the game is like, because the game feel at the table can be very different than, there's a lot of games. I think we all know this. There's a lot of games you sit down, you read it, and you go, oh, this game is so cool. This game, look, I can't believe it. These mechanics, these choices. And then you get to the table and it's like, nails on a chalkboard, because it's so painful because it just doesn't play well. Jake says they'll do it for $20. Right, Huldred, but I'm sure between existing sponsorships, the money he has from Shut Up and Sit Down, and all that other stuff. I mean, Quinn's Quest has 7,200 paying members of his Patreon. So, and by the way, that's an insane ratio. He has 9,000 members, but 7,200 of them are paying. That's crazy, right? So if all of them were the minimum tier, it's $4 a month. So he's making $30K a month just from his Patreon. But I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that a lot of people are the $5 and the $10 a month member. In fact, I'm willing to bet that probably, on average, he's probably got a good mix between the 5 and the 10. And I base this based off of my own Patreon. And let's just say $7 on average. Okay, well, now he's making $50,000 a month. What's up, G&A?
Goblins and androids tipped $50. Happy holidays. Put it in the $1 million jar smile.
Well, Goblins and Androids, thank you so much. And by the way, Goblins and Androids, you should be happy. I know you said you're not going to take a look at it, but basically everything that all of your hopes and dreams about Dragon Tide are going to come true because, basically everyone's like, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. So you'll be pleased. Or maybe you just filled out the survey multiple times just to skew the results. But thank you, Goblins and Androids. I really, really appreciate it. It has been a long year. It has been a difficult year. It's time passed so quickly. I think for all of us, it was 2019. I had started my photography business. Things were going really well. And then boom, 2020 hit. COVID. I was literally shut down by the government. Things, struggling. And then even when we were allowed to reopen, business was basically dead. And of course, at the end of 2020, I started this channel. And it's been, for most of us, right, it feels like no time has passed. A lot of times I blink and I go, when did I turn 40? And I'm like, holy crap, It's like, oh, yeah, COVID, that was like 2-3 years ago, right? And it's like, wait, nope. We're going on 6 years ago. Almost, before you know it, it'll be a decade ago. So time has passed so incredibly quickly. But the last 18 months for me has been incredibly slow. My fire feels like that was 10 years ago. And it was, a year and a half. And my dad dying and losing my job, I feel like that was last year. But no, that was just earlier this year. So time has been really, really wonky and it's been a really, really weird year. I traveled so much. I did so many conventions, which was great. I got to meet so many incredible, amazing people. But I'm also kind of in a weird spot because I've talked about this before, but now I'm in a position where I have to look at this channel for the first time as a means of an income. I mean, again, for the first 3.5 to 4 years of this channel's 5-year history, it basically did not make money. I mean, I spent so much money on rent and, new tech and new gear and all this other stuff and new studios, new whatever, that most of the time my goal, in fact, was to kind of not pay any taxes. Like if I could say, hey, the channel made me $30,000 and I spent $30,000. Like I was pretty cool with that. And then obviously we stepped, we didn't renew our lease in the studio in 2024, which was great because, we had the fire and all this other stuff and it would have been really crazy and hectic. And I had all my panic attacks and stuff. But so for 2024 was the first year I actually made a little bit of profit from the channel because I didn't have as high of expenses. I wasn't buying as many new lights and new cameras and new sets and new gear and stuff like that. And we didn't have the big cast anymore, so I wasn't paying out as much money. And then we get to 2025 and I lost my job. So Now it's like, yeah, I have to sort of look at this channel from a perspective instead of being like, how do I spend enough money on the channel so that I don't earn any money? Now I have to look at it a little bit differently, and so it's been really weird. It's been an interesting time. So I really appreciate that that you're sticking with us. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to put too firm of a print on it, but yeah, 2025 was a bad year for me. It's difficult for. I mean, 2024 was really bad. Right, it was really bad for me. 2025 was worse. So, now you got to spend money to make money. To be fair, Kyle, I haven't bought stuff for the channel in a very, very, very long time. I invested in buying new cameras to set up our bedroom studio. And then of course, promptly life kind of got in the turn. But hey, look, we had our first, broadcast, so we're getting there. But yeah, I mean, from a perspective of like when people usually think of bad life events, I've kind of hit the trifecta. I had a house fire, I had a parent, or a close loved one die, I lost my job. Oh, and I had medical emergencies. I mean, it wasn't cancer. Obviously, it's just in my head. It was the panic attack. But I went to the ER, two times, and all this other stuff. Does rules for first looks not kind of buying stuff for the channel? I absolutely have expenses, Lord of Aces, in terms of buying it. But a couple of things. Number one, I mean, you could argue that it's money that technically would go into my pocket otherwise. But I usually have a first look fund for our first looks, and people are really good about supporting that. Now, PDFs have gotten really expensive. I'm sure you've noticed. So sometimes some of these PDFs are $25, $35. And so usually I get people to support me, and that helps out. So, if I can get like 20, 30 bucks, 40 bucks from chat, that helps pay off. Now, a couple of things. Number one, I am trying to get better now that I have to at reaching out to these companies, these publishers, and saying, hey, we're not a small channel. We're a medium-sized channel with a really high impact, and we can sell a lot of units. Giving me a free PDF and letting me talk about your game, could probably sell you 100 units, give or take. So, it's probably a pretty good return on investment from their perspective. So I'm trying to get better at the business side of things for sure. Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's obviously I've had the channel, Kyle, but in some ways, it kind of has been for me as well. 2019 I was looking really great. I was like, I had my own business, and I was really looking forward to it, and then. Yeah, I mean, we had a couple feelers out there, but no. People, I mean, I guess it's just probably that time of the year. I think people just don't respond to emails anymore. I did get contacted by somebody's PR firm, and they're like, hey, we'd love to have this person on your channel. And I was like, oh, and I was like, trying to figure out what happened. I was like, oh, it's an author who has a PR agent who is trying to get them onto channels that they can get them onto that they expect won't charge them any money. Because I'm sure that there are plenty of, I'm sure you'd love to get on Professor Dungeon Master, or you'd love to get on wherever, but I'm sure, or Ginny D or something, but I'm sure they cost money.
Jacob Online tipped $10, $190 on the tip goal is an ugly number.
There we go, 200. 200 is nice. 200 is great. I'd love to get down to 200 pounds. That's one nice thing, I guess. When this channel started, roughly, I had just been back from the trail for a year, and I had gained weight from the trail. I mean, when I was finished the Appalachian Trail in 2018, I was like 180 something, and then over 2019, I gained some weight, but then COVID hit in 2020, 2021. You can watch on the channel. I mean, I ballooned up. I was over 300 pounds. So at least now, last November, I started kind of, reducing and losing weight. So at least now I'm like 240. Again, I'd like to get down closer to 200, but so at least that's one nice thing that happened, I suppose. I say I'm 6'1", 6'1 and a half. So 73 inches. I don't know what that is in metric units. I don't know how you guys do. 1.8 meters, roughly. Will you cover the two new draw steel classes? I think one is called the Summoner and the other is called the Beast Heart. They are new in what way? I mean, like, have they been released? Are they going to be released in Crack the Sun? Or are they like released? In stones, I am 17 and a half stone. Roughly between 17 and 18 stone. Well, my answer is we need to finish up. We have 3 more core classes to go. We have the Tactician, the Troubadour, and the Talent. Tease. So River Ray, we're actually going to be doing a year-end award ceremony before the New Year's. So right now it looks like the patrons are helping vote and decide the categories. The categories are, number 1, Game of the Year, which is the best overall game that I played or covered or got into or talked about. So number 1 is Game of the Year. Number 2 is Best New TTRPG. So released in 2025 that I am aware of, that I looked at, that I played, that I reviewed, that I first looked, or, even if it's in like my zeitgeist and I'm like, I think this is, even if I didn't play it, like I respect that this is the best, this is the best new TTRPG. Number 3, Best Indie TTRPG from a small press publisher. Number 4, Best Core System or Mechanical Design. Number 5, Best Setting, Lore, or World Building. Number 6, Game with the Best GM Support. Number 7, Game with the Best Character Building and Advancement. Number 8, Best Art and Graphical, graphics. Number 9, Most Innovative Design that we found. Number 10, Most Surprising. Could be good, could be bad. Number 11, the Not For Me At All, But Great Award. And number 12, the KOLC Complete Bias Choice Award. And then the patrons are still voting to add a couple more categories. So it looks like we're going to get the best layout or the most reader-friendly book, most mega gameable. I like that one from Clobster Roll. And publisher of the year. That one's from All Dark. So we're probably going to add those 3. So publisher of the year, like the best like layout in terms of most readability, and the best, what is the best mega gameable game that we looked at this year? So there's going to be obviously a couple things. Oh, Pumpkin, that's not a bad one. The problem is I do not have a ton. I mean, I can't, that is something I'm going to have to be very, 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 that's going to be very subjective because I do not have a lot of ton of experiences. Most likely to embarrass you when you suggest it to the group. That's pretty good. Oh, yeah, Game of the Year has to be at the end, of course. Where are the fun categories like Best Barbarian? Well, the problem with that is that automatically self-selects to a fantasy game, and I don't know. I find that's, I don't think that's particularly useful or something like that. I mean, I'm sure we'll probably get into some crazy, weird tangents, especially if people tip and super chat. We can talk about that, but good. Best Ranger. Go full dumpster fire. Fun categories aren't supposed to be useful. Oh, it'll be a long stream, Derek. I'm for sure. 6 hours is, I would say we've done 6 hour streams. It'll be 4 or 5 hours. Yes. I'm kind of with Pumpkin here. Fun categories are dumb. So I kind of agree with that. I'd like it to be a useful retrospective, on the thing. Do we have a day for the stream? So here's the problem. The problem is, number one, Vin is off from work until after the new year, and he's pretty available, and I'd love to get him onto a bunch of streams. And so, I'd like to have him on. Number two, there's a couple of first looks that people supported and paid for, and I'd like to do them. And one of them is Land of Eam, which I was going to do tomorrow. And I messaged, because Bob is never available on Thursdays, and Thursday is Christmas Day anyways. And so I said, hey, Bob, are you free tomorrow evening for Land of Eam first look? And he says, I'm not. I'm going to my mom's. It's like his 8th Christmas. Bob, I think, and his family goes to like 8 Christmases. And I said, okay, well, I might see if Vin is free. He's off this week. And then Bob says, don't do Eam without me. And I go, okay, well, I doubt you're free Thursday night. And he goes, yeah, no. He's like, well, can we do it next week? And I said, I guess. So we still have some first looks to do. But I would have loved to. So I would have loved to do the. I want to do the Game of the Year awards on next Tuesday, so the 30th. So the day before New Year's Eve. Technically, there is supposed to be a stream tonight, like in 14 hours or whatever. We'll see. Again, I don't know what I want to do. Vince says I can get on the stream right now. Don't worry about it, because I don't know how long I'm going to be staying on. Again, I needed to kill some time until Starbucks opens so I can get my coffee. So that's why I came online. Also because I set up this grid and I wanted to see how it does. It all depends on when I take my next nap. I mean, again, I'm totally Vin will be on the stream. Vin, do you remember what stream topics you wanted to cover? So we had a patron poll, which we ended up doing Draw Steel because I forgot there was a tip goal for that. But the actual one that won was bonds and relationship mechanics in games, which was added by Pulf. And Pulf and I, Pulf has been playing and loved it, has loved Fabula Ultima. And we obviously just kicked off our Fabula Ultima campaign. I'm a big fan of Fabula Ultima. And it's got this bonds and relationship system, which I think is really neat, but it is very bare bones. And there is a certain amount of charm to that. It doesn't take the front seat. It kind of sits in the back. However, I do think that there is something to be said about games that really put the mechanical focus forward on bonds / relationship mechanics. And I think that there is I think there's an unexplored space for this. And I've talked about this before. Obviously, Fabula Ultima and its bonds are kind of more in that, Persona type game system, right? Where it's like, we're or anime or Avatar, where it's like, we're a band of adventurers, but it's also about the power of friendship, But I also think bonds and relationships could be really interesting from the perspective, again, of a cottage core or a cozy core game, where the game itself, the challenge, the goal of the game is to build relationships, and not just like FBT relationships, mechanical relationships, and to build those with fellow PCs and with NPCs. So exactly, Lollipop. KOLC, tactical slice of life with relationships and gardening / fishing / crafting, right? So that's the game. Right, that's the game. That's the game I don't want to play, but I absolutely think that game could hit a very strong basis. Oh, very Stardew Valley inspired. And I know a lot of people go, there is a Stardew Valley game. It's called Iron Valley or Ironheart. And I go, yes, it's a super duper rules light game. That is very like PBTA inspired. And additionally, a lot of people will point out games like Wander Home. And the problem I have with games like Wander Home is that a lot of the mechanics are things like, here are the mechanics for the Sun Parade. Okay. The Sun Parade mechanics are: the Sun Parade celebrates the end of Leap and the start of Bright. Those are months. With a holiday of cheer. Choose 2 traditions that this place doesn't engage in. The rest all happen. right? During the sun parade, everyone can always cool off in the shade, spend a token to find a pretty new dress or a new friend. So again, like that is a thing. And I could absolutely totally see a group of really, we're here just, we're here for a fun time, not for an interesting time type of group really engaging with this. And again, I think this game is beautiful. We covered this game, and I think there's a lot to like about this. But I want that kind of game, right? Find a new friend, find a pretty dress. But I want it to be like, oh yeah, I've got a sick friend finding build, right? I've tactically created my character. I've built my character to really do well at the friend acquisition system. And as crazy as it may be, I think there is absolutely a very strong underrepresented niche that would very much vibe with that, because I do think that I think people like, procedural games, and I think people like a lot of people like combat, whether they realize it or not, because it's so structured, and because the game gives you a lot of mechanical knobs and levers, and there's things that you can look through and flip through the book and dream and envision, and you can plan out this element of your character. And then when the time comes for the game, when you're in combat, it's like a dungeon. I've always said a dungeon is very useful as a design space, because you can't go anywhere. You can only go to the places. You can only go to the rooms that are there. And so it gives you direction, but it also gives you freedom. And so combat is like that, because when you're in combat, you're like, well, I can't just do anything. I can do the options that are in the game, but they give me a lot of options. And so I feel very empowered to do that. So I think there's a lot of people who really enjoy the mechanical crunchiness of combat, but they don't necessarily want to be killing everything all the time. They just want to be engaging in this really evocative, interesting, dare I say, yes, Kyle, relationships as sport. Yes. That is exactly it. Whereas in most RPGs, right, it's raw. It's relationships as war. Exactly. That's a great observation. Well done. So Jake's more of a relationships as cinema guy. Okay. So we've been talking about this. Exactly, Lollipop. That's another thing. Remember, Lollipop is quoting something that I quote often, which is it's the third rule of Dungeon Craft. Could be the second rule, which is maybe it's the fourth rule. A good adventure, a good game session, a good adventure. People have this connotation now of like a published adventure path thing, but when I say adventure, I mean the thing that the PCs do. Challenges both the player and the PC. Right, so it should challenge the player and it should challenge the PC. And in most games, TTRPG systems, the thing that works the best for challenging the player and the PC most of the time is combat. And I think that's the reason why it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. People go, I really like combat, and so game creators think, oh, I really need to focus on the combat. And what they're missing there is the reason why people really enjoy combat, game masters and players, is because it's a great area, it's the easiest area in the game to challenge the players and their PCs at the same time. And it could be very, very satisfying, I think. And so, because if you're in a situation where you're playing a role-playing game and you aren't being challenged, it's only your character that's being challenged, that I think is very unfulfilling. And I also, despite what some people would say, I think if I'm playing an RPG game and my PC isn't being challenged, if it's just me, the player, that's being challenged, I also think that's very unsatisfying. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I think that is something that some role-playing games have missed the mark on, and particularly super heavy narrative story-focused games, but also I think OSR games have gotten a little bit too far away from the importance of challenging the PC. And they focus too much on challenging the player. And to be clear, it's a knee-jerk reaction to years of hyper over-focus on the PC. PF1, 4th edition, even 3rd edition, really. 3rd edition, PF1, 4th edition, and to a certain extent, 5th edition and PF2 as well, really, honestly. And just the general zeitgeist of a very, what I'll call video game-focused, video game coded player base. People have become almost reactionary to the hyper fixation on what your PC can do or not. I make a check, and so they're like, oh no, fuck, we got to get rid of all skill systems, and PCs should have no abilities whatsoever, because that way players are going to be forced to interact, and it's ruling over rules and all this other stuff. And that's great, but I think the core community has gone too far, to the right or to the left or whatever axes we want to put onto it. But yeah. Persona, which I've never played, but I've watched it be played when my buddy was living with me, is absolutely a game that gets talked about in this realm, for sure, and the mechanics therein. Right. What's the saying? What gets mechanics matters. Well, I always say, what gets measured, it gets managed. Yeah. So, but yes, I mean, I think there's a fallacy that you could say, okay, whatever gets the most mechanics is the most important part of the game. I think certain things, we don't want to create too many mechanics. I mean, because I think if a system has too many mechanics, and it's actually not that important to the game, then we're being very inefficient. I mean, a system should have as many mechanics as it needs and no more than that, right? He's speculating that people like combat because it tests the cohesiveness of the players. I like combat because it's combat. I mean, there is something to be said about the inherent desire for violence, but outside of that, yes. I mean, I'm generally assuming that the people that we're targeting here with this demo who would rather play Stardew Valley or Harvest Moon than, say, Call of Duty or God of War are probably not in that demographic. The Cortex system, FMD, which Smallville RPG was kind of like the basis of it, was a game that did have some relationship. All the Cortex games, I think, did as well. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think defines one of the reasons why we like games is this idea of I want to get good at the game. And there's something to be said about, being rewarded because you invested time and care and effort and you got better at that thing. I mean, that's a generic, universal human truism that I think people respond to very much. And whether we want to admit it or not, role-playing games are just games. And so, I think there's a very strong relationship between being able to get good at a game and feeling more engaged with it and feeling more excited about it and wanting to spend more time with it, for sure. Persona is goated. I could do without them yelling Persona every 5 seconds, but yeah. Well, isn't combat always going to get the most mechanics? Doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. Persona, 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 persona. And the worst part is they say, at least in the one game, even when you're going through like the menus. Merry Christmas to you there, Roman. Appreciate you hanging out. It's going to be interesting Christmas. My sister, whose house I go over to, my sister has kids. I mean, the kids are grown up. They're like 19, 17 now. She goes, well, we had ham on Thanksgiving. She goes, but Tyler, her oldest son, had to work on Thanksgiving, so he didn't really get the ham. And so, like, she's like, so like 2 weeks later, like just like a week or two ago, she's like, I made another ham for dinner for the week or whatever. She's like, so we're all kind of really hammed out, and nobody really wants a turkey. She's like, so I think we're just gonna do like steaks and baked potato, or maybe we'll just do like a prime rib roast or something. So it's gonna be a beef forward Christmas. And then of course I live at home with myself and my friend Amanda, and she doesn't really do anything for Christmas either. Her family's not really around here, so I asked her what she wanted to do, and we were kind of talking about. She's like, that what you were talking about doing over your sister sounded really good. And then she's like, but I don't want you to just like have nothing but, beef for dinner or for Christmas. And I said, well, we could do something else. She's like, what about seafood? So I said, yeah, let's go. So tomorrow, today, I'm going to go get some shrimp and some clams and maybe some lobster tails, if it's not too crazy. And we're going to do like a seafood. We're going to do some roasted red potatoes, some corn. We're going to kind of have like a seafood bake for Christmas Eve. And then Christmas Day, I'm going to go over to my sister's and have steak and baked potatoes, apparently. I mean, who doesn't love a prime rib roast? Go for a steak and a potato. I don't eat a lot of beef, in full honesty. In fact, most of the beef I eat in the course of a year, I eat in Las Vegas. So when we go to Las Vegas, we usually make it a point to go to at least 2 nice steakhouses, and I usually get. I used to get sirloins or ribs, but I because I don't like filet. But in Vegas, the reason I don't like filet, it's too lean, and I think there's not a lot. There can be good flavor, but I don't think there's a lot of great flavor. But at a really great steakhouse, they usually have or will have a really great béarnaise sauce or some sort of hollandaise sauce. But béarnaise, I think, is the best. And one of our favorite restaurants, which is there's a couple of locations throughout America. One of them is in Vegas called Bavette's, Chicago style. And they have, I consider to be one of the best béarnaise sauces in the world. And my buddy doesn't like his béarnaise sauce. So they serve it with the hot béarnaise or the warm béarnaise. I take his. So I have 2 things of the béarnaise. And then if I get like a prime rib or whatever, it's too fatty to put in the béarnaise. But filet works so wonderfully with a béarnaise sauce because the béarnaise is so fatty and rich, and the filet is so lean and beefy, but it doesn't have that fattiness to it. So it's perfect. So that's a really good combo. Anyways, so that's the only place I tend to eat beef. At home, I cook mostly at home, and I mostly have dairy, chicken, turkey. I do fish here every once in a while, but yeah, I do a lot of poultry, fish, and dairy. Basically, is what I eat mostly. Goblins hates béarnaise. I love it. I'm not saying I could drink it, but it's pretty good. Yeah, I don't really eat pork either. So I don't really eat pork or beef that much. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, am I gonna again? Because I don't really go out to eat that much. But if I do, if I find myself at a restaurant, I'll get a bacon cheeseburger. I'm fine with that. But I just tend not to eat a lot of pork or beef. Am I doing the red eye? Yes, basically. I explained at the beginning, but basically my sleep schedule is completely messed up. I fell asleep last night at like 9 p.m. or something, 8 p.m. And instead of just like sleeping through the night, I woke up at like 3 a.m. So I was like, I guess my day is starting early. So I was like, I'll just, Oh, seafood gumbos would be nice too. I do like I love gumbo. I love a good chowder, a good clam chowder. Lamb. I don't have a lot of mutton or lamb. I will eat lamb. I find that most people serve lamb too rare for me, and I don't like it. Bloody lamb chops is not something I'm about. Spaghetti's. That's another thing I'm a little weird about. I don't really like pasta. I don't really have it at my house, and I don't like going to Italian, like American style Italian, right? Where it's just like a big gigantic bowl of pasta. But I'm not a big pasta fan. I can do some rice, I guess, occasionally, but I'm not even a huge rice fan. I really don't like grains, honestly. I like vegetables. I love fruits. I love berries and apples. I eat berries and apples all the time. And I like chicken and seafood. So, no, not really, not rice. I don't eat a lot of potatoes. No. I don't know. We'll see, Sandy. I mean, obviously there's no, financially, it's not like there's any reason for it. I've just been playing Final Fantasy 1 because I wanted to play it, But we'll see. I mean, will I play more Final Fantasy games? Maybe. That could be fun. I'd love to play through like Final Fantasy 4. That's a favorite of mine. But there are other games that I think would be fun to play. Older games like the Eye of the Beholder series, or the Clouds of Xene, or the Might and Magic series. So older first, some of the earliest first person graphical computer RPGs, games that I grew up loving. So it doesn't have to necessarily be Final Fantasy per se. That's the remastered one. No. I mean, that's what started the whole thing, Sean. By the way, good to see you, Sean. But I was going to get that and play it, and then I was like, well, let me just start with Final Fantasy 1, because you know what, I kind of really wanted to play it. So, but I would like to replay Final Fantasy. I haven't played or beat Final Fantasy Tactics since it was on the PlayStation 1, so it's been that long. Oh yeah, I grew up loving Might and Magic. Might and Magic 3, Isles of Terra, Might and Magic 4. Is that right? Might and Magic 3, Isles of Terra, Might and Magic 4, Clouds of Xene, Might and Magic 6, Dark Side of Xene, I think that's right, are some of my favorite games of all time. Then they did Might and Magic 7, which was when like 3DO owned the company, and they started to get into like 3D like CRPGs, and I hated it. So to be clear, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, if a computer role-playing game looks like this, chances are pretty good I will like it. Right? Like where it's like on a grid, it's forced perspective. It's, kind of drawn. The moment that a game becomes like true 3D, like where you can just like move around and stuff, I'm out. So like 90%, like all the Elder Scroll games, Skyrim and Oblivion and all that other stuff, no interest. Absolutely zero interest. But like a game like this, hell yeah. A game like let's see here. Oh, there we go. There's a good one. Oh, that's a terrible picture. There we go. That's a good picture. No, that's a terrible picture. I hate when you do a search on Google and they're like, hey, how about we show you images that are like 200 pixels by 200 pixels? And it's like, well, that doesn't help. I was looking. So here's another one. Oh, I got confused by what's going on my screen. Yeah, so that's Eye of the Beholder 2. Love it. It's another one of my favorite games. So I could definitely rock those games for sure. Yeah, Bard's Tale, fantastic, Sean. I played some Wizardry growing up, FMD for sure. I remember Wizardry 8, I think, maybe 7. But yeah, I remember playing some Surtech games back in the time. So, those are the last RPGs that I will play. The original, the isometric, Black Isle Studio, Baldur's Gate 1, 2, Icewind Dale 1, 2, Planescape Torment, Neverwinter Nights. I didn't beat that one, but I did play it. But yeah, those are like basically as far as I'll go. The isometric view, I can still do it. It's different. It's not my favorite, but I can do it. I don't mind it. I prefer the first person, but locked into it. But the isometric I can handle. Oh, I played my first. I played my first Bard's Tale for sure on a Commodore, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Space Quest, Police Quest, King's Quest. My mom used to play those all the time growing up with her friend. Those were a lot of fun. Sierra Adventure games were awesome. I love those. Loom and Full Throttle and Monkey Island and Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle, Grim Fandango. Those were pretty cool. Anyways, yes, I'm on that. I'm on that European shit. Well, I was a little young for Leisure Suit Larry, so no Leisure Suit Larry. But I mean, I was certainly aware of it. I remember seeing it on my uncle's shelf. No, I stopped playing video games in like 2010, 2012. It's kind of when I stopped playing video games, actually. More or less. Around that time. Anyways, didn't 3.0 D&D 3.0 have facing rules? Not that I'm aware of. Well, boy. Well, I mean, I guess thank you. I'm very happy that you didn't cancel. We love having you around. I love having your support. Appreciate you. Well, yeah, then I made Game Night. That's like replaying Final Fantasy 1 is like the first video game I've played in like 5-6 years. For sure. I will say there was a game that came out in like the early 2000s, and it was an isometric. This one we may need to play on stream. So this game came out in the early 2000s, and it is Temple of Elemental Evil, and it was known for being horrendously buggy, and the AI was terrible, and it had a shitload of problems, and all that stuff. But apparently they just did it's on Steam, so apparently it was terrible, but apparently they just released it on Steam, and I really wanted to play this because this was a isometric 3D, like Icewind Dale or Baldur's Gate, but it used 3rd edition. It used 3.0. And I was really, 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 I really wanted to play it. Apparently, they re-released it, And no, I'm not interested in your AI mode. It was re-released on Steam on December 10th, 2025. So 2 weeks ago, bringing the classic Troika TTRPG to a modern audience with over 1,000 fixes and quality of life improvements, largely incorporating years of community modding from the Circle of Eight and Temple Plus into an official, easily accessible version for the first time, featuring enhanced stability, UI, and gameplay without adding new content, just fixing the old stuff. So I've basically always wanted to play this game. And I never really had a chance because it was so busted and it was so broken. And I never cared so much that I was going to sit there and like find all the mods. And this is back in the 2000s when it was originally released. It was not as easy as it would be now. We didn't have things like Steam, but modern compatibility, no new content, just polishing it up, over 1,000 fixes, fixing the AI, improving stability, fixing the bugs, fixing the performance, improving the UI. And yeah, so we may need to, it may be a requirement that we play this. So it's not often that I get to break video game news to people, but everyone here knows that I think 3rd edition is goated. And while it is not really realistic that I would be able to play 3rd edition anymore, I will play a video game for it. Not to mention, I mean, who doesn't love Temple of Mental Evil? One of the classic adventures of all time. Yeah, 4th edition never got a video game, and that was always a shame. But, you know, it would have been good. Oh, yeah, we got to go deep down. Now, the problem, of course, people won't be happy because it's like, you know, it's going to be 3rd edition the way that it was released, not like with 5,000, prestige classes and every splat book available to you for the end of time. And they're like, wait a second, what do you mean I can't have 17 classes by level 18 and, you know, all these crazy, ridiculous things. And I found this random feat from some you know, I mean, the board games are definitely based off of, if you're talking about like Wrath of Asherdalon, Castle Ravenloft, and there's a third one, and I never remember what it is. I thought they did 3 of them. But. What's the chances that we play that tonight? I comment via screen share or something while you drive. What? Wait, the Temple of Elemental Evil game? Well, no, I would say low because it's Tuesday night. I kind of have to stream my regular stream so I can make some money, basically. Because if we played a video game, it would just be on the secondary channel, and we would just have, you know, 5 or 10 viewers. So you're just like very selfishly, you're like, I just want to do this. Oh, you're right. There was a Dritz one. I think you're right. Pumpkin. Maybe it's called The Legend of Dritz. That sounds right. I mean, I'm down to play it at a different time. While, you know, if you want to just like, you know, sit in the shotgun, for sure. But I can't do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays because Tuesdays and Thursdays are my number one, my RPG content, which I feel like I owe people, and number 2, I need the tip income so that I can, you know, live. As I said before, basically, I'm at a point where, luckily, the Patreon pays for my bills. You know, pays my mortgage, and it pays my utility bills, and it pays my grocery bills and all that other stuff. But it basically doesn't leave any money left over. And so basically the money I get from tips and super chats is my spending money. So if I wanted to, you know, buy a new pair of shoes, you know, or buy whatever, a fun new book or game or something like that, you know, put a little money aside to go to Vegas or whatever, that all comes from tips and super chats. And that would be very scary to be in that situation, because then if a disaster struck, I would be in real trouble. Luckily, like I said, I was saving up to buy a house, and I didn't buy a house, which is good. But that does mean I have a bunch of cash sitting in the bank. But that is, you know, that's my emergency fund. So, like, you know, if I don't know, I have another fire or something, or like if my car breaks down or something. But so I'm not in a situation where I have no money in the bank and I only make enough money to cover my bills. But I also don't want to like tap into my, my emergency fund and savings just so that I can, buy a new RPG. So, anyways, point is, Tuesdays and Thursdays are very important to me because that's when I cover Derek popular topics, and my video game streams are fun. I like hanging out with people while I play Final Fantasy 1 and stuff, but we get almost nobody watching. We got to get the EverQuest going. That was a lot of fun. I loved watching Bob just struggle bus to the nth degree with these old MMOs. But Bob never played MMOs at all, so it was actually kind of doubly interested. My emergency fund is for fleeing America. True. I mean, real talk. I don't have a ton of stuff keeping me here anymore. Like, I mean, I have my dogs, and obviously I live with my friend Amanda, who I help support. My mom is here, but most of my friends I see online now, even my friends locally, I'm just playing with, we're playing remotely now. We're playing Fabula Ultima remotely, even though we all live in the same city, except for my buddy Kaz. We're playing remotely. And, there's a part of me that's like, man, I should be living, in Thailand or something, like a king, because the money I make here, I sell my house and go buy something in Thailand, and the money I make from this channel and stream would go a lot further, in Thailand or something like that. And I only picked Thailand because I know a lot of streamers, Magic the Gathering streamers, move to Thailand because of the affordability, safety, and because the time zone is great because they can basically work, a normal work day, but that time corresponds to the evening in America. So that's very good. Sean, thank you so much. Merry Christmas, Derek. Hope 2026 is a wonderful year for you. Sean, I am cautiously optimistic. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you, Sean. I really appreciate it. And in complete transparency, the number one thing that I am looking forward to in 2026 is NightCon Session 0 at Origins. I really, 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 really want to make sure that we can pull this off. And I'm not trying to overdo it, but if we can get our own private room at a major convention and have 35 plus patrons show up running, 4 or 5 plus games, for 12 plus hours a day for 4 days straight, that would be such an amazing, awesome win. And I that would be such a cool moment for me for so many reasons. It would make me feel like that was what this channel was all about this whole time. And it would be such an incredible physical realization of my dream. You know what I mean? In that respect. I also really love Thai cuisine. Pad Thai is my favorite food in the world. I pretty much have it everywhere I go if I can. I love Pad Thai, but I also love red curries and yellow curries, and I love Tom Yum Goon and Tom Yum Kai or whatever. I love I love it all. Thai is delicious. I love all the food. And the women aren't that bad. The girls are pretty nice looking. Aldred, thank you so much for your super chat as well. Put it towards a plane ticket to Belize and enjoy your lean fire. Yeah, hey, I would love to get back to Central South America. I have visited there a couple of times, and I love it. I've not been to everywhere, but I've really enjoyed it. And in fact, there was a time, Aldred, where a guy I knew at work, he was a high-level lawyer, but he owned an apartment in Buenos Aires. And he basically rented it out during the most of the year. And then he would go down there, basically when it was winter, he would go down to Argentina and basically spend the summer there. And I was always like, I love the idea of having a sort of a winter home in South America. This is back when I worked and I made the big money back in the day. And I just thought that was so cool, and I think some of those countries are so awesome and beautiful and fantastic. I have never been to Brazil. The closest I have been to Brazil is when I went to Iguazu. When I went to Iguazu, we did cross over and we saw it from the Brazilian side as well. So my passport did get stamped with Brazil, but we didn't really go into Brazil properly. But we went to Iguazu and because we were mostly there for like Uruguay and Argentina, but mostly because I speak a little Spanish. I do not speak Portuguese, but hey, that's fine. If I've got a local guide, who needs to speak Portuguese, Português, as they say in Spanish. So when are you going to actually write down Dungeon Time Extreme and Shadow Deep? Well, Sketchosaurus Rex. That's a great question. The problem is with Shadow Deep is that is a tremendous amount of work. I obviously think mega dungeons are really cool, and I do think that there's a market for them. But if I'm going to be completely honest with you, if I'm going to work on something like that, it has to be marketable. I can't spend thousands of hours and then make $20,000. I can't. I just can't do it. I need to make a living, or go get a job. So while I do think Shadow Deep could potentially do well, Shadow Dark is a big thing. The truth of the matter is something like a mega dungeon is a tremendous amount of effort. It's one thing to plan it out, which is what we've been doing with Project Shadow Deep. I'm trying to, with Project Shadow Deep, it was never designed to actually make it. People started talking about it. Oh, Derek, you should totally publish this, which is great. The point of Project Shadow Deep, that series, was to show you the framework, the design mentality of how I would structure a mega dungeon. But then once you finally get to a point where you're like, okay, we have the structures in place, we know what balance of rooms we want, we have an encounter flow, we have a map flow that's going to be an interesting board game space to play. We have several factional identities in place that have different impact and influence throughout not just this level, but the multi-level region, right? We have created, once we do all that stuff, sitting down and actually making 40 or 50 plus encounter rooms, or 40 or 50 plus chambers or encounters or whatever you want to call them, with, text and, choosing the right monsters and putting in, if you put in descriptive text, if you put in text for the box text, whatever. Once you actually start doing that, that is a tremendous amount of work. So to go from the framework to actually filling the framework is a big difference. So, and I think that would be really, really cool. And I own some very chunky dungeons. Okay. This is probably the biggest book I own at almost 1,000 pages. But I cannot imagine how long this would take someone like me. I don't know how long this took them. So, I mean, it's written May 20. The thing from the author says May 2004 to March 2012. So I don't know if that means it took him 8 years, but regardless, and that would be fine. But and I'm not like saying I need to make the money in the next 5 minutes. But if I'm going to work on something like that, like for publication, I want it to be something that I can be fairly fairly certain I can deliver and do in a reasonable amount of time. So that's the problem with Shadow Deep. I mean, I think it's really cool. But, all right. Now, the other one you said, Dungeon Time Extreme. That one's more reasonable. But the thing about Dungeon Time Extreme is it is number one, it's deliberately it's kind of a troll, right? I mean, it's called Dungeon Time Extreme, for God's sakes. And I know this sounds stupid, but most people don't know who we are. And I feel like if I release a game called Dungeon Time Extreme, it is a joke, right? But it's also not a joke. And it is a joke, but it's also not a joke. And I don't know if I want the first thing that I release to be a joke, or that's something that people will perceive as a joke or take as a joke. Or you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, to be fair, like last night, me and Vin were kind of ripping, not ripping. Vin was being more mean than me. We were kind of criticizing Land of Eam, because the game has this really cutesy kitty aesthetic, because it was written by two people who write graphic novels for young kids, the artist and the writer. And they made a role-playing game. And they made their role-playing game off of, their graphic style that they use for their young adult kid comic books. Great. But this gave people this impression that the game is like this for kids, kind of cutesy, cuddlecore kind of game. But it's not. It's actually a post-apocalyptic dystopian game that actually has a fairly complex set of rules and is actually a sort of fiction-forward, PBTA-inspired game mechanic, which actually it works very similar. It uses a D12, not a D20, but it actually works very similar to the way that I had designed DTX. So, yeah. Now, so point is, I don't want I don't want Derek, the other Derek out on the internet, to see my game and to think like, what is this? Is this like supposed to be a jokey game? And it's like, well, if it's a jokey game, why are they taking it so sincerely? So to that end, I think that's my concern with DTX, is that people won't take it seriously. Yeah. Derek, I think Rawlings got it correct. I'll be typecast as unserious. Correct. Right. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, Pumpkin. I was gaming with my buddy Kaz. You guys know Kaz from the Discord, and of course he was on our Quest for the Frozen Flame actual play. Kaz is a great guy. And Kaz always says that he is sincere but not serious. And when he's playing role-playing games, he's very sincere, but he's not super serious. And I realized that, he's absolutely correct about this. And I realized that that's part of the problem that I have with a lot of the way that games are being made today. And one of the reasons why I was actually surprisingly into Wilderfeast, because Wilderfeast is not a serious game, but it's very sincere about it. And I realized that there are a lot of games today that that in the modern era, it's cool to be disaffected. It's cool to not care. It's cool to subvert expectations, right? It's cool to Bodie McBoatface. And I realized that so many of the modern day aesthetics of a lot of these RPGs, the problem with them is they aren't sincere, but they also aren't serious, right? And that's what I don't like. And so I realized that that's one of the reasons why that Wilderfeast game jumped out at me, is because I said, yeah, this isn't serious. Your characters wield oversized weapons that were made for giants that are all cooking instruments. You wield big pots or big frying pans or gigantic cleavers, butcher cleavers. But the game is so sincere about it. And it's not just a shtick. It's not just an aesthetic, and it really, and I think, Mateo, I think being serious and taking yourself seriously is what kind of means that taking yourself seriously is what I think it means, the sincere part. And so I agree with Pumpkins. I hate things that are both silly and insincere. And I feel like so much is very insincere in the RPG space, right? Like, okay, for lack of a better word, the obsession with games to just vomit forth. Let's just be honest and let's call it what it is. A bunch of crazy random ancestries and races that aren't particularly serious. But I also feel like those games don't do a great job of being sincere about those crazy weird they're more just like, haha, isn't that so funny? Isn't that so trolly? It's just like, here's a bunch of random races and it's so unserious and it's so subverting expectations, and we're not sincere about it at all. We're just, here's a bunch of goofy weird shit. And I hate that aesthetic. PF2, 5e, take your pick, Kyle. Well, I actually think the reason why I think Marvel Cinema did well is because it wasn't serious, but they were very sincere about it, right? And the example I always give is that if you look at the 90s era X-Men movie, okay? If you look at the 90s era's X-Men movie, the one with Hugh Jackman and Famke Janssen and Patrick Stewart, especially that first one, they were afraid, I think, to be sincerely a comic book movie, right? They were afraid to, be like, this is the X-Men. Let's make a comic book movie. Let's lean into that. And so they tried to make it sort of an action movie, and they tried to put them in like the black leather instead of, their actual comic accurate stuff and all this other stuff. And, those movies were beloved at the time, but the truth of the matter is they never hit the way that Marvel Cinematic Universe did. And I think it's because Iron Man 1 was 100% sincere. And a great example of that in Iron Man 1, and I'm sure I'm talking to fans here, I think we can all agree that half of the cool part of Iron Man 1, and I don't even know how much screen time they spend on this, is him building, designing, and testing the Iron Man suit. I mean, when you think about that movie and you think about the editing choices they make, I mean, he does what? He flies into that one hot spot and just, it's not even a contest, right? I mean, he just destroys everybody. There's no real opposition. He just shreds everybody. Okay? When he goes into Gulmira or whatever, the one where the tank hits him with the no scope and then he blows it up with like a tiny little rocket. And then at the end of the movie, the big bad guy comes up and they fly up and the other guy ices and falls to his death. They don't even like fight, they fly until the other guy ices and falls apart. So most of that movie is spent like watching him like weld and solder and do cool things with the digital things. And, why? Because that's what Iron Man is about. That's the sincerity of that. Now, is it serious? No, it gets played, as a recurring joke, right? With the thing that keeps splashing him with the fire extinguisher, right? But Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr. plays it so sincerely. That is what really sells it. And if you want to see another great example of this, it's the holidays, okay? Go watch A Muppets Christmas Carol, okay? And I think there's even an interview where like Michael Caine basically says the key was he treated it like he was acting with any other actors, right? And he really, when he was talking to Kermit the Frog as Bob Cratchit, he's there. Now, it's A Muppets Christmas Carol. You've got Gonzo and Rizzo, cleaning the window with the rat. But the movie itself, they're fucking Muppets, But the game takes itself the movie takes itself so sincerely, even though it's not serious. And it's an all-timer. There's just no way. It's probably one of my favorite, Christmas movies of all time, up there with A Christmas Story, which is, very famous here in Cleveland because it was filmed here in Cleveland. You can go to the house and stuff. But yeah, I mean, Muppets Christmas Carol is fantastic because it is not serious, but it is very sincere. And so I agree with you, Yes and Dragons, that Henson in particular was a master of sincerity. And you can watch a movie like Dark Crystal. It's a great example. And you very quickly, I think, forget that you're watching Muppets and puppets on screen, for sure. And Red Letter Media, which most of you know, Half in the Bag. Maybe you don't know it. But even if you don't know this channel, you're probably familiar with this very famous review that they did of The Last Jedi. It's a very famous review where, he trashes the movie completely. But one of the things that he says is that one of the things he didn't like about The Last Jedi is that they were almost kind of like making fun of people who were sincere about Star Wars. And he has a great line in there where he says, like, we don't have to, we could treat this sincerely. Like, why are you making us feel dumb for caring about Star Wars? And it's like, we don't feel that way. We feel very sincerely about this universe, and we feel sincerely about this world and these characters. And you're playing this off as a joke, as a troll, and that's not right. And that's and I completely agree with that. And I remember the moment that Star Wars died for me. Okay, is the opening of The Last Jedi. And the Poe Dameron is flying in, and he goes something to like the First Order commander, and he goes, "Tell him I have an important measure or an important." I mean, he basically makes a "your mom" joke. And like they just play it for, and I just remember being like, "Whoa, what is happening here? What is going on?" And like, Force Awakens was just kind of a rehash, whatever, of, in some ways, of Star Wars. Whatever. They killed Han Solo and whatever. But it was okay. It was like, okay, this is clear. This is just, it's a Death Star, but bigger, Instead of Obi-Wan dying, it's Han Solo, whatever. And I remember being like, and the whole thing came out, oh my God, it's so good. It subverts your expectations. It just subverts your expectations. My expectations are that was that I was going to care about this movie, and that this movie was going to take itself sincerely, and it didn't do that. And so I sometimes feel like there is a trend in RPGs that to treat the games insincerely, and to not to not own it. And anyways, so we kind of got on a whole Star Wars thing here. So Mateo, I didn't watch The Mandalorian, or I don't watch any of those shows because I don't have any streaming services whatsoever. So I don't have Disney Plus or anything like this. Okay. I don't watch a whole lot of reaction stuff, but I remember when that happened, it didn't really mean a whole lot to me because I just heard about it. I remember watching a compilation video of a reaction video. It's a compilation of people reacting to that scene, and feeling so many feels of watching these people who cared so much about this world and this universe and these characters, and to see a show give them that kind of proper respect and to honor these characters rather than to shit all over them. I mean, there were people, and I felt it, again, it was, I didn't watch it live, but I full disclosure, like when I saw Return of the King, if I saw Return of the King right now, my friends, I bow to no one, especially if I was like deep in the mood, I'm gonna potentially ugly cry. You know what I mean? And so when, they see this X-Wing show up and people are like, X-Wing, wait, what? Who is it? And they're like, one X-Wing, great. And then you see the person walking through and they're like, and it's in black and white. And then, you see it's Luke, and people, I mean, it was awesome, So this is yes, it's Star Wars. Okay. It's not the most serious thing. It's space opera in space with laser swords and weird little dumb aliens. Okay. Lord of the Rings, that scene that we're talking about is a fantasy king bowing to a bunch of half-sized hobbits. But because it treats it so sincerely, it hits us, It hits us right there, man. What's up, Sean? Good to see you. We were talking about Origins earlier and how hyped I am. TLDR, Sean, my sleep schedule's really messed up. I went to bed last night at like 8 o'clock or something, and instead of like, sleeping like a normal person until the morning, I woke up at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was like, well, shit. Starbucks isn't open yet. I guess I'll just stream. Right. To be clear, Kaz is sincere but not serious. I don't think there's anything wrong with sincere and serious films. And in fact, one of the things that we talked about when we were debating what game that we wanted to play for our Friday night game, and we ultimately chose Fabula Ultima. But this legitimately got brought up, and not that it won. I obviously I'm more of a Lord of the Rings fan than my friends are. But one of the reasons this got brought up is people said, "Look, we understand that our group is sincere, but isn't very serious, especially when we're all just playing Friday night RPGs." And we all felt like a subject like The One Ring deserved a sincere and a serious approach to it. We felt the same way about Legend of the Five Rings. And when we did our Legend of the Five Rings campaign, and we were very good about it, and my players were very good about it. But we all agreed that that's maybe not our most natural thing. Beowulf, I think I speak for you, but I think everyone's just surprised knowing that you are very much a sincere and serious guy, right? You want stuff to be really, really, serious. And that's okay. And by the way, nothing that is serious is 100% serious all the time. Lord of the Rings has its moments of levity. You do have to, you have to let your audience and your players breathe 100%. 100%. But, there's a distinct difference between Lord of the Rings, which I think is sincere and serious, and Marvel, which is sincere, but not very serious. And I'm talking about like good Marvel, not like bad Marvel, Thomas says, listening to Derek ranting about our favorite nerd stuff while drawing scenes from my last Daggerheart game has to be my new favorite thing to do on a train. Well, that sounds awesome. Right. My usual group can't do serious for it. Yeah. Band of Blades. Yeah. Band of Blades is a serious game. I agree. One of the reasons that my group was so good at doing Mutants and Masterminds was because, superheroes are kind of innately not very serious. If we're, like you could do serious superheroes, but I guess you end up with like The Boys then. I don't know. But like superheroes are kind of innately kind of not serious. But my group was very sincere about it, but they're not a very serious group. And so superheroes worked really, really well for my group. Not another I've heard of it. I haven't watched it. Yeah, and again, I didn't really watch it, the some of the newer Snyder Justice League things, but I remember there's like a great scene where it's like the Flash asks Batman what his power is, and he goes, I'm rich. And that's, that was pretty, that was pretty good. Whereas I feel like the Christopher Nolan Batman movies were trying to be sincere and serious, in very much. And don't get me wrong, I love the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, but they do feel different, than some of the Batman stuff. And I didn't see the new Batman with Robert Pattinson, the Twilight guy, but I'm led to believe that was also trying to be more sincere and serious. Like they go back and forth. Michael Keaton as Batman. Well, I should say like the original Batman. Like were they all directed by? No, I don't think they were all directed by Tim Burton. But Batman. Well, certainly Batman 1 and 2 with Michael Keaton were not serious. I mean, look at the Danny DeVito as the Penguin, right? But they were sincere. And then you got into Batman like 3 and 4 with like George Clooney and Val Kilmer, and they were very not serious. And I also feel like they were very insincere. And so people were kind of like, this is garbage and crap. And so then you got Dark Knight, right? Which is super serious, super sincere. Then it switched over to Ben Affleck and sincere, but less serious. Because they're like, the Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan was too dark. And then we came back with whatever the new Batman's called, and now they're back to serious and sincere again. So there's a kind of a back and forth. But I think the problem is you lose the thread line is when you lose that sincerity. Now, again, I've never seen The Boys. I've only know what people say about it, but because I don't watch TV and I don't have shows. So, the playfulness in Burton's early stuff is important to his art, and when he loses that, he goes downhill in IMH. You know what I did not know? I did not know, I think, that Sleepy Hollow is Tim Burton's only rated R film. I think I saw that the other day on Reddit or something like that, and I did not know. Right, Raul Julia played that role, to the hilt. Contrary to popular belief, Nightmare Before Christmas, not directed by Tim Burton. It's Tim Burton presents Nightmare Before Christmas, but he didn't actually direct that movie. Just saying. Technically, it's not a Tim Burton film. Technically. No, I have not. But I don't really watch movies that much anymore either, and I don't watch trailers anymore because I don't care, and I don't go to shows, and I'm just, whatever. I will say I did see this. You want to talk about someone who's sincere? Two words for you. Brandon fucking Sanderson. He is leading this is the new leather-bound Eye of the World copy. Look at this thing. Now, Tor, and Brandon Sanderson, by the way, did a whole video about why he is making this, basically, like why he's taking the charge. And basically what it comes down to is Tor, the people who publish it, did a leather-bound version of the game. And it's completely boring. It's just completely soulless. I don't even know. Yeah, here. These are the original Eye of the World leather-bound books. They are literally just flat leather. There's nothing there. There's no decoration to the spine. It's just the normal hardback book. You can see that, by the way, this is going for $100,000 because it was a very limited edition print, but it was done in leather, and it's just in a slipcase, and it's just a leather thing. And basically, Brandon Sanderson said, this is shit. And so Brandon Sanderson, through his Dragon Steel line, it basically went to Tor, and they said, working in close collaboration with Harriet McDougal, that's Brandon Sanderson's, or Robert Jordan's widow, the Jordan estate, our creative team has spent years immersed in every detail. This is the first in a 14-book plus prequel epic. So they are going to take years, okay, to develop this book. I mean, like, this is just Eye of the World, okay? And again, it's coming out February 2026. It's through Dragonsteel. But look at this. I mean, look at the spine. But not only that, okay, this would be enough. Look at the interior. New art, existing art added, full color. These little color splashes on the intro team. The spine is textured and ribbed, full all leather with this gold foil. Brand new art pieces throughout, refreshed chapter icons, blind embossing on the cover for a tactile experience, a ribbon bookmark, gold gilded edges, acid-free paper, stunning end papers, Dragonsteel's signature two-tone ink, Robert Jordan's signature preserved in print as a tribute to the master storyteller. I mean, my God, is this a gorgeous fucking book? And do I want it? Yes. Can I really afford it? Not as much. But do I want it? You know, I don't know. Yes, this is the only refreshed chapter icon I've seen. I'm gonna guess that these people are very sincere and they are going to do it the right way. I'm just guessing. If I had to guess. Yeah, so Kyle, this is each book. So the first book is $180, $885. I mean, look at this. They even give you when you pre-order it, there's even a holiday card, because it basically says, hey, what you're holding is a note to know that somebody purchased you this book. Hey, Brandon Sanderson here. We hope to have it ready for the holidays, but quality comes first. And basically, they didn't get it run. They didn't get it done. And they're like, hey, somebody bought you this book. We wholeheartedly endorse their choice. I promise it's worth the wait. I only got to hold one for the first time about a week ago, and I love it. I'm so excited for everyone to get theirs. Until then, this note will have to suffice. Your book is on its way. I promise you. Happy holidays. May you find water and shade. Brandon. It's just awesome. I mean, talk about a sincere individual. What does refreshed even mean for chapter icons? Well, the original chapter icons are like black and white, and you know, they're kind of a very, very they're evocative, but they're kind of sketchy and small. You know, this is obviously a little bit more detailed. It's got the color backing. It's still very, very truly in line with the original iconography, which I think is awesome. Yep, exactly. Yes, and Dragons. I just bought a copy live. Look at that. Night's Last Call, still selling books, you know. This is a problem. I mean, this happened to George Lucas. For sure. I didn't know about it until yesterday or 2 days ago. Brandon Sanderson, he did a video, and he talked about basically why he did this and his history with Eye of the World. And, you know, so I think it just got announced like a week or two ago. Oh, Brandon's original editor retired. Okay. Again, I even said this in the Discord today. I said, I mean, I loved what he did with the ending of Wheel of Time. I go, I may not like the Cosmere, and I may not love, you know, his books and some of his writing style, but I absolutely love Brandon Sanderson. Like, I think he is legit as it comes. And I think he's super sincere, and I really appreciate that. So, and he's a nerd, you know. He's a nerd. You know, he loves magic and D&D, and you know, he loves fantasy, and he loves Lord of the Rings, and he loves Eye of the World. Like, he is a nerd's nerd. I think that's great. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of him, honestly. So earlier, Vin, I think you said that I pinned something for us to talk about. Oh, here we go. So here's what Vin wanted us to talk about. So Vin, self-confessed cynic, super long-term supporter of the channel. You guys have seen him on here before. He's free this week, so he wanted to do The King is Dead, Long Live the King, a retrospective on the state of 5e killers, making better friendship and relationship systems. We talked about that one. And this year in RPGs, a major review of
Been tipped $210. Buy yourself a copy on me. Merry Christmas. I think this covers it plus shipping.
Oh, you crazy son of a bitch. I mean, I am going to. Buddy.
I am strong.
Thank you. Thank you. It's going right in the cart. Buddy, thank you so much. Vin, that is a lovely, lovely gift at a very, very nice time of the year to do it. And I really appreciate it. Again, I love, I appreciate the choices that I made in my life, but when something like this drops and I'm not able to just immediately add it to my cart, it's a little sad for me. So I'm really, unfortunately, I should say, fortunately, I am at the mercy of other people's kindness and generosity. But the good news is that there are people out there like the self-confessed cynic, Vin, and so many other people who really support me. That even though it's been tough, I do have the ability to still have some really nice things for myself and to have some fun presents. I love Wheel of Time, and I love books. And having something like this is, I have a really nice collection of Tolkien books, and I consider this to be, right up there with Eye of the World, Lord of the Rings, and Wizard of Earthsea Cycle are like, for me, like the defining trilogy of fantasy. And I'm so excited that, that this series is coming out. So Vin, thank you so much. I'm sorry I just cost you many hundreds of dollars, not only for my own generosity, but so that you picked it up. But I will graciously accept this gift in the spirit in which it is given. Thank you very, 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 very much. I look forward to getting it sometime in February. It'll be sweet. Earthsea, Jake. Earthsea Cycle by Ursula K. Le Guin. Oh, it looks gorgeous. It looks beautiful. I mean, they did it so right. They did it so beautifully. Again, you should go watch Brandon Sanderson. He has it on his channel. He talks about his relationship with Wheel of Time and I, the World specifically. And then he talks about the original Tor Leather Edition. By the way, if you want to talk about the original Tor Leather Edition, was $250 a volume. So really, honestly, you're getting a steal here in some ways, because the original versions were $250 a piece, according to Brandon Sanderson. I have no reason not to believe him. And he just oozes sincerity. And it's funny, Vin, that this came up because we were talking about sincerity, and we were talking about how important that is. Thank you, Brown Fox. I really appreciate you. Well, I was talking about Vin when he was so kindly and graciously to gift me a beautiful, beautiful gift and a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful surprise. Really appreciated that, because as excited as I was that this came out. Again, I just discovered this, I think, Sunday night, that this edition was coming out. And as excited as I was, I went and looked it up, and I was like, oh, almost $200. And I was like, oh, I cannot justify this, I just can't justify this. So, thank you for making it easy for me. I appreciate you. So as I was saying, Vin wants to talk about predictions for 2026. He wants to talk about the state of 5e killers, which will probably get me canceled. And then also an overview of the trends and happenings in the year of RPGs. So that may be a session, that might be a stream or two. Also, Vin apparently wants to get on and play third edition Temple of Elemental Evil video games team with me, and potentially wants to join me and Bob when we cover Land of Eam, a new game from Exalted Funeral, who are cool enough to have sent me not only digital copies, but they're sending me hard copies as well, along with Dolmenwood, which we're going to be covering in detail because I think that game has a very real chance of being a lot of people's game of the year. And by that, I mean product of the year, because game-wise, it's just BXD&D. But all very, very good. Jake says, thank you. A new series. Oh, Jake, you have to read, just at least read A Wizard of Earthsea. Just, you have to. It's one of the greatest books of all time. And if you really like that book, you should also read the second book, which is called Tombs of Atuan, which is really good. I love both of those books so much. I have, I love me a tattered trade paperback. I will be fully transparent that Wheel of Time are so thick that, if you have like Lord of Chaos in paperback, as a trade paperback, that thing has got a cracked spine like you wouldn't believe. Like Eye of the World is short enough that you can get away with it in trade paperback, but once you start getting to like Fires of Heaven and Lord of Chaos and Path of Daggers, because I think Crown of Swords is actually shorter than Lord of Chaos. Anyways, point is, you're not able to trade paperback that, in my personal opinion. I have my books for reading. I have a mix mash of paperbacks and hardbacks. I'll be completely honest with you. I have hardback copies of Eye of the World, Great Hunt, Dragon Reborn, Shadow Rising, Fires of Heaven. Maybe I don't, but Lord of Chaos, Crown of Swords, Path of Daggers, maybe Winter's Heart. I think my ones after that are paperback because I kind of was not feeling the story as much anymore. So, and then the ones from Sanderson, Towers of Midnight and all that other stuff, have all been paperback as well. Fantastic. Love it, Mishi Knight. Welcome. Which was my favorite? That is a great question. I mean, I love the first three. The first three to me are the most Tolkien-esque. So I do really appreciate those. Fires of Heaven is, of course, really, I mean, when like the stuff with the AEO really started building up and all that other stuff, like in like 4, 5, and 6, that was pretty okay. It was all right. But yeah, book 4, 5 is like when it started getting a lot more political and they started really splitting up the characters a lot more. I kind of liked it when everybody was kind of more together. Yeah. So Jake, I completely agree with you. 4 is when it kind of comes into its own, right? Shadow Rising is definitely, when it comes into its own. That being said, I mean, Sanderson, I think, knocked it out. I think, the final 3 books that he did are really, really good. So, I mean, I think, Gathering Storm was great. Towers of Midnight was, okay. I love A Memory of Light. I think the ending of that is so good. I actually love the ending of that. I thought it was really good. It was kind of Deus Ex Machina, but it was done. It had been communicated and set up so well that I really love it. I will say my least favorite books are probably like Winter's Heart, Crossroads of Twilight, Knife of Dreams. Yeah. Haldred, I read 6 and 7 when I was a teenager. I was in high school when I read 6 and 7. And yeah, it was a slog. And I reread it again recently. It's still kind of a slog. There's still some really great moments, okay? But yeah. 6-7. Yes. Well said. But yeah, especially after the excitement of the ending of Fires of Heaven. And the problem with A Crown of Swords is like Crown of Swords, as I recall, is like really slow paced, right? It's really slow. It's really slow. They're building up. It's like this, they're like moving all these chess pieces. And it's been a while since I've read it. You know, all the books kind of merged together. But I recall that like after an entire book of setting up everything, at the end, doesn't Rand doesn't he just like travel to like Ilion and then just like take out what's his name, the Forsaken, in like a chapter? I think the book, it's like it's like this massive buildup to this like invasion or something of Ilion, and then they just like he just like teleports in and just kills him or something. I can't even remember exactly how it ends, but I just remember being like, it was so sudden and it was so huge. Now see, I don't like Matt. Matt is my least favorite character. So I like Perrin. I like Rand's okay. I like Perrin, but Egwene's okay. But Kyle, it's just a thing that the kids are saying these days. 6-7, 6-7. It's just like a meme. Yeah, I think a lot of people go with Matt and Rand, but Matt was too right. I was ruined by Matt from the first couple of books, you know. The problem with Matt is like Matt is too like normal. You know what Matt is? Matt is the character. He's the person who always insists on playing a martial character in D&D. And it's like, dude, you're not cool. Just be a wizard, okay? Anyways, at least I respect that he gets the fox head medallion. So at least it's like at least it makes some sense that he can be, you know, cool and be not just completely destroyed. Jake wants to know, if movies and TV shows aren't your things, other than books and TTRPGs, what are your favorite hobbies? Well, nowadays I don't have as many hobbies because, you know, things kind of changed after COVID, and in terms of my social structure and all this other stuff, but and who I engage with. But I used to love woodworking, but my shop burned down. It was in my garage, and my garage caught on fire. So I lost my woodworking. I used to sail, but my sailboat was damaged. It struck a underwater rock pile and got really damaged. This was like before COVID, and I just never fixed it. So it's been sitting in my mom and dad's backyard, my mom's backyard, for years. So I like sailing. I like woodworking. I used to play a lot of Magic the Gathering. I don't do that as much anymore. I just mostly drafted here and there. I used to play a lot of miniature war games, Warhammer and the like. But my buddy, who I primarily and principally played with, he sold his house and moved to San Francisco. What else? I used to knit a lot, but I don't really have anyone to give anything to knit to. I love baking, but again, I don't have an office to go to. One of the reasons I used to bake so much is because I used to work in an office. I managed a team, and I would just bake stuff all the time and bring it in for the office. Now that I'm at home, I don't really eat it as much, so I don't bake as much because it would just kind of get thrown away. What else? Well, I mean, photography used to be a hobby, and then it became my job, and then that job went out of business, and now I don't really do photography anymore either. So, because it just doesn't, I don't have the time for it. So I do a lot of stuff for this channel, you know. Now it's getting unpaid to show up on RFC. Yes, that is correct. How come you don't play as much Magic the Gathering? Gridlock, it got really expensive. I didn't, my money situation was pretty low because after my photography business went out of business, I didn't really have any money. And I kind of stopped playing. But also, too, I think I used to be, I've always loved limited and played, but I used to be pretty serious. I used to go to like 20, 30 Grand Prix or Opens a year, a lot of PPTQs, trying to get onto the Pro Tour and doing all that other stuff, top eights and playing for money. I've never played Magic the Gathering ever, casually. Ever. Like, ever. I've only ever played Magic the Gathering competitively, basically. So I've never played. I mean, there's maybe a handful of instances where I've played for like no money. But like, I almost always play for something. Have I met, I think you mean Luis Scott Vargas? Yeah, I've met Luis Scott Vargas. But anyways, I don't play as much Magic the Gathering anymore because I just kind of like the structure in the game. At the time, they changed everything to the Mythic Championship. I don't like playing online. I don't like playing Arena. I don't like playing Moto. So that kind of ruled me out. And then I just never got back into it. And now it's so stupid and expensive. And I don't like where Standard is. And they got like Legacies in a bad spot. I don't like Modern Horizons 1, 2, and 3 and Lord of the Rings, I think ruined Legacy and Vintage. And I never liked Modern anyways. So blah, blah, blah. Woodworking, sailing, Warhammer, Magic. Damn, you got money hobbies. Well, Haldred, yes. I'm single. I've never been married. I don't have kids. And in back in the day, I was a high level manager of an analytics team at a Fortune 100 company. I made really good money and I enjoyed those hobbies, and yeah, they're not cheap. This is in before I tell you I also like watches. But also just not having a spouse or kids makes it a lot easier as well. My mom, my grandma crocheted, my mom crochets, my sister crochets, and so I got into knitting because I was like, no. So let's see. How's that? This is my knitting bag. There we go. Ooh, this is some really nice yarn I got. This is alpaca wool. I bought this off of like I don't think it was Etsy, but I bought it off of like a bespoke dealer who like raises alpacas for their wool. So this is some alpaca wool, and then I've got some circular for doing hats. Makes it a lot easier. I don't like knitting in the round. That's where you knit with circular connected needles. I find it a little bit tricky. Oh, here's another one. Oh yeah, see here, look at this. I don't know if you guys can. There we go. A fine yarn from Hampton Hills Alpaca, and you can see like each skein is like individually labeled. This is like hand painted. So I just loved buying these like small little custom little bespoke skeins from like local suppliers and stuff like that. Really cool. And it's just very pretty, very soft. Makes for great scarves and stuff. I've never made I don't make things that are like, there's another one. I don't make things that are like super complicated, but mostly winter stuff. Hats, scarves, shawls. I've done some socks. But like I've never done anything like a sweater or something like that, crazy like that. My new hobby is mega games. You know what, Jake? You joke. But I have done mittens, Jake. Jake Rammel. different Jake. I've never done gloves, but I have done a pair of mittens. I've done many pairs of mittens, I should say. Mittens are, I mean, a mitten is just a sock with a thumb. So, yeah. But anyways, Jake said, my new hobby is mega games. And in a way, it kind of is. I think I really enjoy the process of designing a mega game, you know? Did you have a brand choice for your cameras? Canon. I'm a Canon guy. Now, I say that. The new cameras for the studio are Blackmagic Design, which is another company that I really like. But for like my photography work, I always use Canon. But Blackmagic Design doesn't make photography cameras. They make cinema cameras or studio cameras. So I really love Canon, and I really love Blackmagic Design. So there you go. Yeah, Cube is good. I mean, who doesn't love Cube? Yeah, Jake, it was kind of a bad beat. It really, the reason why the fire was so bad was because, number one, it was traumatic, and I'm not gonna lie, it was. I was just really glad I was home. I was the only person home. I got my dogs out. Whatever. The real problem is that because of look, ultimately it was my fault, but I think my condo association dropped the ball, and they made substantial changes to the HOA's insurance policy, which basically ended up meaning, without, I think, doing a proper job of explaining to the residents what the implication of those changes was. And the long story short of it is, I was massively underinsured for this fire. And I suffered, I was not made whole, basically. I did not have enough insurance to pay for the damages, is what it comes down to. Haldred, correct. Universes Beyond turned it unserious. I completely agree with you. Yeah, Modern Horizons. Well, Modern Horizons can't ruin standard Gridlock. Modern Horizons was only modern legal. That's what made it Modern Horizons. So it didn't ruin standard. But Pumpkin is correct here. Direct to modern, which is Modern Horizons 1, Modern Horizons 2, Modern Horizons 3, and Lord of the Rings, along with the Commander sets, which bypassed standard and went straight to Legacy, ruined competitive Magic, and I completely agree with that. Take care, Sean. And Pumpkin's out here. I'm just a little bit behind, but yes, modern. You can't ruin standard. It wasn't in standard. So hardest thing to knit is anything that has multiple, like a sweater, right? Because a sweater you have to knit the neckline, and then you have to knit the thing, and then you have to cinch it in at the bottom, and then you have to knit the sleeves, and you got to connect them. Anything with that is going to be the most difficult. I don't really make them. Oh, a loom. Oh shit, that's Major League. I've wanted to get better. My roommate and friend Amanda, she owns a sewing machine, and I've always wanted to get good at using it, but I've just never had the time to learn how to do it. Vin wants to know, are there any mega games aside from the secret one actually cooking? So to be a mega game, there's like official mega games, and then there's like community mega games. And I basically told people, look, if they want to run a game, they can do it. The only thing you need for a mega game is people who are willing to put in the work to make it happen. The reason why I make KOLC official mega games, and they don't cost money, but you have to be at least a $10 member, is because presumably I'm getting involved, or Bob or Smith back in the day. We are helping to run it. We are helping to organize it. We are creating rules documents. We are making approvals for changes to the core game. We are, adding elements to the world lore. We're adding elements to this. If you don't need me for that, then you don't need my approval to do a mega game. And the reason I bring this up is because we're in our off season, right? Our two main mega games are currently offline, as they always are in the wintertime. And we usually have some like smaller scale games. And we were going to do one for Beacon. But then we found out that Beacon doesn't really have a good Foundry solution. Well, turns out one of our patrons, Nell, has been working on a Foundry solution for version 13, and they've been pretty far along with it. And so we're like, oh, maybe we'll launch this. But before that happened, people were like, well, why don't we play Lancer instead? Because it's fully supported. And it's not fully supported on version 13, blah, blah, blah. And people are kind of like, hey, what's going on with this? And people wrote some rules. I said, guys, you don't need my permission. You don't need my permission to, hey, thank you for the subscription. With Prime there, Mastro Pisto. Thank you, Mastro Pisto. Appreciate you. By the way, if you want to head over to twitch.tv, we're not actually streaming on twitch.tv, so I actually really appreciate that they did that, but it's free. Anyways, so people are like, oh, I want to play Mechs, I want to play Lancer. And I said, well, you don't need to wait for me. If you guys have a good idea and you have a GM council who is willing to make some, to serve as a sort of executive team, then you could do it. Or, you could have a very, very loosey-goosey game. In fact, 90% of the time when I introduce stuff to a mega game, most of the time people don't like it. So, and the reason they don't like it is because they didn't join the mega game to play the mega game. They joined the mega game because they wanted to play PF2 or they wanted to play Dragonbane. And they don't like when I change the game. They want to just play the game as close to raw as they can. They just want to be able to play it all the time, which is fair. And if people want to do that, I highly encourage them to go and kick it off and do their own stuff. But that's not what I want to do. And quite frankly, that's not where my value is. My value is in creating a unique experience. So. Derek thinks he can't design for TTRPGs, so he designs for mega games instead. Well, I mean, if there is some truth to that, Lollipop, but also historically, my designs are usually very unpopular. So I don't know that people don't say that they are bad. They just dislike them. What's up, Kendall? I was buying dog food today at the pet store, and they had a bunch of cats in their like adoptable center, and they were very, very cute. Good night, Lolly. Good night. Well, Dark of Winter was designed by Smith, so there's that. Smith is a designer. He's very quick. Now the Eastern time zone people are waking up. Well, look, for a lot of people, this is maybe their last day of work or whatever. I'm looking forward to this. I'm going to get done with this stream, and then I'm going to go to Starbucks. I'm going to get some coffee, and again, I don't know what I'm doing tonight. Well, I also love Smith, but I am going to say something. There's a big difference between the way that Smith and I approach things. Smith, Smith is strangely very optimistic. Smith, I don't know. Smith designs things and he doesn't consider like the what ifs. And he doesn't really think like when I'm writing or I'm thinking about designing, I'm not saying like I don't need to do play testing. Okay. Like that's not true. Play testing needs to be done. But when I'm designing something, the first thing I'm doing is beating it up. And I'm thinking about all the ways that this is bad. And I'm thinking about all the ways that this is going to be abused. And I'm thinking about all the ways that this is going to lead to a negative player experience. And I'm thinking about, like, okay, put another way, Smith evaluates and designs for the ceiling, and I design and evaluate for the floor. And so a lot of times Smith will develop something quickly, and it's really fun, and a lot of people really enjoy it, but it's completely broken and it falls apart the moment, you start going off of this intended experience that he intended, Jake, buddy, $5 is, you have already supported me more than 99.99% of people will ever support any creator on YouTube ever. So You have my heartfelt most thanks, and I really appreciate it. But I appreciate you, and I'm glad that I was here for you. And you know what? You were here for me. Being able to sit down and talk role-playing games with you all has helped me through some of the really toughest times. I mean, people sometimes remember this, but I live streamed the day my dad died. My dad had died that night, and I live streamed that day. And I had some people on, and we talked about games. And you know, that's not me, you know, not facing the reality. It's just me saying, hey, this is what I do. You know, I like talking about games, and that's my happy place. So you know what, Seldon, you're kind of right here. Smith designs for the middle of the bell curve, and I try to design to the chuckle fucks at the ends of the bell curve. You know what? You're kind of right, actually. Like, if you're in that middle, let's call it 66.6 percentile, right? If you're within that one standard deviation of the average, Smith's design is very good. Outside of that, if you start talking about 2 or 3 standard deviations, like the other 33%, which is 15 and 15 on either side, that's where things can fall apart. And that's where things get abused. And that's where problems emerge, or people have problems with the play experience. You are absolutely correct that I try to design for those, you know, or try to eliminate those. And it's just the nature of even our careers and how we have developed, and what he did as a job for 20 years and what I did as a job for 20 years. You know, part of my job as an analyst, as a control analyst, was to look at things and think, how does this not work? Where is this going to fuck us? Let me think of all the things that other people didn't think of, right? And to be that kind of safety net for business decisions that I can back up numerically and analytically, and basically say, you know, you're gonna roll this out, and you're not thinking about it, but it's gonna have these negative unintended consequences, and maybe you're okay with that, but you should at least be aware that those are going to happen. That kind of idea, my mentality. Smith's intro to the old DTX is so fucking good. Got it right here, baby. Pumpkin, once a mega game master, now a fallen scion. Literally what drew me to NR was the unique aspect of it. I just so happened to be into PF2 at the time. The mega game is the better part of the game. Unfortunately, Pumpkin, not just pumpkins are unfortunate, but unfortunately, I feel like most people do not share that sentiment, for sure. Yes, I don't think that's a problem, Seldon Hari. I just think that no, we never released it as part of the Patreon, Mishi. I don't actually know how Vin did. I might have like posted like one page of it once to the Patreon. Here we go. Now, so the story behind this is I ran a 5th edition campaign that I jokingly called Dungeon Time Extreme. And I wanted to run a bunch of ideas I had that were combined from a lot of other games, PBTA, Dungeon World, a couple of other games engines that I was interested in, and a bunch of ideas that I had. And I wanted to make run a game. And I wanted to do a dungeon-based game. And part of the reason for that was I wanted to... I don't exactly remember what it was. Long story short, Smith was really excited. And then he was like, oh, disappointed, because he's like, I just wanted to play 5th edition. And I was like, really? He goes, yeah. And he's my buddy. He's my best friend. So I said, all right, Smith, I will take all my ideas and I will take 5th edition and I will just jam them together. But I'm actually going to create rules. I'm just going to do it on the fly, and we'll sort of figure it out, and we'll kind of, see how she goes as she goes. And so we never actually sat down and wrote down what we did. And we ended up playing a bunch of classic adventures, but we played like Keep on the Borderlands, Caves of Chaos. We did the whole thing. I mean, we only played for like 15 sessions. Anyways, we had a lot of fun with it. At the end, when we were like later on talking about people should write it, people of the Patreon like, oh, you should make those as rules. And I said, nah. And Smith's like, you are never going to do it. So I did it. But the thing with Smith is when he did it, he was kind of like, I don't really remember what the rules were because we never wrote them down. And also, I'm trying to, the rules for DTX were be a good game master and just, go with the flow. And so Smith was trying to put more structure into the game than was actually there. So you could think of this isn't Dungeon Time Extreme. Okay. This was a tribute. Okay. This is not the greatest RPG in the world. This is just a tribute. And this was Smith's sort of version of what we were trying to accomplish. So another way to think of it is this game system was trying to emulate DTX. Okay. And try to create an experience that was similar to what my players got with me as the game master. And since since I literally can't go, game master for each of you, could we create a game system that could do this? So I will read the intro that Smith wrote. Dungeon Time Extreme. For generations. Hold on a sec. I put it away. I was going to get the crazy light. For generations, role players have heard of the legendary dungeons that built the very foundations of our hobby. The Tomb of Horrors, the Caves of Chaos, the Temple of Elemental Evil, Rapan Athuk. These dungeons were brought to life by the creative imaginations of dungeon masters and players alike, creating a world of deadly yet exciting fantasy adventure. While modern game design has taken a lot of what made these old systems clunky and streamlined them, it has also done a lot to remove the soul from these games. And while many grognards might interpret that statement to mean the game is easier now, which is true, DTX has a different angle. What made those games fun wasn't necessarily the difficulty or the grind that so many OSR heartbreakers focus on, but the immersion and the feeling that you are in a dangerous and deadly location, never again to be seen by the light of day. DTX means to go back and capture that spirit of adventure, not by providing harsh rules and brutal deaths to the characters, but by providing fun and fast tools for the dungeon master to weave compelling and exciting moments together throughout the campaign. And while there is certainly the group out there that loves rolling a one-hit point fighter and getting killed by a misplaced arrow in the very first fight of the game, this book is not for that group. This book is also not for the group that likes deeply tactical miniature combat, or for the group who nor is this book for the group that enjoys complex, deep storytelling. So who is this book for? No idea, honestly. If you like kicking ass and taking treasure, though, you might find something here that grabs your curiosity. So that's what our game was for. And I love that Smith basically says, well, do you like, old school one hit point and you're just dead? It's not for you. But what about complex storying with deep character arcs? No, it's not for you. What about complicated tactical miniature? No, it's not for you. Because we didn't do any of that. Everything was just real loosey-goosey and just kind of like, very beer and pretzels style. So anyways, yes, this book is for no one. In fact, Gridlock, I know you're newer to our community in that way, in Discord stuff, but that is the KOLC. If people here who have been with me for years know that is basically the KOLC approach. Who is this video for? Who is this channel for? Who is this game? No one. This book is for no one. I just finished your Trespasser streams. Tundless did, in fact, make jumping a non-rolling action in the latest version released last week. I know. I had dinner with Tundless in Philly when we were at PAX, and he was very appreciative of not only the advice I have given him, but also the support that I've given him, and the exposure is as small as it may be for a small indie publisher like him. It's even bigger. Yes, this channel is for Derek. Yes, we're all no one apparently. Correct. We're all faceless men and faceless women. But yeah, I mean, I've talked about what DTX is and what it is. Basically, DTX was my attempt to play PBTA with 5th edition rules, basically. Because again, I that wasn't my intention, but Smith really wanted to play 5th edition. So I guess you could say it was kind of a weird precursor to Daggerheart, actually. Because, well, we used complete theater of the mind, but it was very PBTA coded, but it also still had like levels and feats and like, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, actually, now that I think about it, it was kind of, in some ways, kind of our precursor to Daggerheart. And one of the reasons I kind of enjoy Daggerheart in that way. But it was also very old school. Like we used phased group initiative, and, you had to declare your action before each round of the initiative order, and a bunch of stuff that I'm sure modern players just absolutely hate and can't stand. So, but again, the joke was that because it was, quote, 5e compatible, I should publish it because it would make money because it's 5e compatible. But of course it's not really 5e compatible, Who was talking about hacking phase initiative? Somebody was talking about it. Was it Gil Greco? I don't remember. Somebody was talking about hacking phase initiative. I know that. Maybe it was Shorn. Was it Shorn? I know Shorn was here earlier. I don't know if they're still here. There you go. Can confirm, not a fan of trad phased initiative. Haldred says, my unironic hot take is phased initiative is actually the based initiative system. Phased initiative is just cleaner, in my opinion. By the way, Shorn, let me tell you something here. It's been a while since I fired up the old PFU. But we did it on Friday. Because we found our old like V11 campaign on a Forge server. We updated to V13. We did the full upgrade. We were shook at how good that was. Smith, I think Smith is going to play Fabula Ultima just because like P brings up the party sheet and C brings up the character sheet, and the party sheet like auto tracks the adversary, including the scan updates. It takes a lot to impress us. We were so impressed at how fucking good that fucking system module was. It was pretty impressive. Well, phased initiative might work in well in Fabula Ultima. I mean, phased initiative is what's used in Beacon, and Beacon is kind of a JRPG, so, kind of this. 8 phases in Beacon feels like too much. Yes, but also realize that the 8 phases in Beacon is kind of not really 8 phases in Beacon, but it is a lot. It is a lot. Again, in mine, I have missile, right? I have the 4 M's. Missile, movement. Wait, is that right? I could be wrong. Missile, melee, movement, magic. Something like that. I don't remember what my order is. But it's the 4 M's. It's missile, movement, melee, magic. Something like that. And the way phased initiative system works is basically you just go, one side goes and the other side goes, but instead of everybody on your side going and then everybody on the other side going, you go, everybody does missile fire first. Okay. First, you go and then they go. Then everybody does melee then everybody does their movement, then everybody does their magic. So that's it. Tamadethi, no, actually, the opposite. I want melee to be I want it to be before movement. Because that way you can't just move and attack in the same turn. Unless you charge. Yeah, I love the charge and release thing in Beacon. I think that's one of the coolest things I've seen. I mean, look, I love Beacon. I think it's really cool. It's probably a little bit too complex for me. And I do think, I mean, unfortunately, like the 3-hour combats are going to be a problem, but yeah. So the reason why movement comes before magic is because if the wizard moves, you also disrupt the spell. So I mean, we're kind of whatever. It's a tangent, but the way that classic phase, I mean, to be fair, this is like me being inspired by BXD&D, but the idea is that in classic D&D, well, I should say in classic D&D, in BXD&D, you would declare at the start before initiative was even rolled, you say, I'm casting Fireball. And the idea is that you are casting Fireball. You're starting to cast it now. If you take any damage before you get to the magic phase, your spell is disrupted. If you move, your spell is disrupted. In other words, if you want to cast a spell, you basically have to be protected and or get missed the entire combat round and not move around. You're basically kind of a sitting duck because spell casting is a big deal, right? And so by putting magic last, you basically make it so that, like, yes, the wizard could move, but if they move and they were casting a spell that turn, they would disrupt their spell in that respect. Now that we have the studio back up, Jake, absolutely. Hackmaster, I think it's one of those games that you have to play in person to really see it. I would love to do a demo of me and Bob and Tim or whatever, Smith or whatever, playing a Hackmaster based initiative. And again, real time TTRPG combat. I mean, as close to real time as you can get it. So charging in my system is the only way that you can move and attack in the same turn. Basically, the only way you can get into combat in the same turn, like from a distance, like cover distance and attack, is to charge. And the reason why that's a big deal, back in the day, one of the things that you could do in the game was ready to receive a charge. And basically what it meant is that if somebody charged you, you could attack them first. And if you had certain weapons like spears or polearms, you actually did double damage. And so what that meant was that while it could be very tempting to charge in, if the enemy has spears and polearms and they are ready to receive your charge, then charging in against them is kind of a bad idea. So it kind of leads to a lot more combats where like the two groups are kind of slowly moving in and circling around each other. And whether you like that or not, I don't know, but it's kind of different from what we think of in terms of like the third edition mentality. Because in the phased-based initiative system, everyone's kind of declaring what they're doing before anyone goes. And you're kind of doing that right away. So it's like, in a way, it's like everyone takes their action at the start of the turn. And then the initiative is kind of just like when you actually get to take a physical action. So you don't actually have to like wait until your turn in the initiative order to ready an attack or something like that. It's like, no, you were readying the whole round. So it's complicated. No one understands it. And whatever. In that way. I'd have to go back and read. It's been a while, and it's a weird time for me. It's 6:30. Who knows how much I've slept? But the long and the short of it is, yes. Basically, in my game, if you move, you're not attacking, right? So you don't get like a move action, right? If you're like moving substantially around the battlefield, that is your whole turn. That's it. Full stop. Oh yeah, they opened up, I think an hour ago or 30 minutes ago. So I could go get some coffee. It is pretty rad that the studio stuff is back. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm sure not everything is good. Again, our actual play content has never been very profitable for us. In fact, I've oftentimes lost money because I had to pay people, but it sure is a lot of fun, and I it lets me get, that kind of stuff there. Lets me, get a lot of get more reps in and show people what I'm working with, and whether or not you like my style or not, whether or not you should listen to me. I mean, do I think I'm a good GM? Yeah, but do I think I'm the best GM for everybody? No, far from it. And there's always things that you could work on. Yeah, it's a theater of the mind. It's a theater of the mind game, so there's no grid. It's highly inspired by combat from this version of D&D. Yeah, exactly. And so the way it actually works is before the players declare, I, the GM, decide what the monsters are going to do, kind of, on my own. And then the players declare. That way I'm not, impacted or whatever by their decisions. And then things go. And it could be very exciting because, we re-roll initiative each turn, but it's not for each individual person. It's which side goes first. And it's only a D6 and it's not modified. And if both sides roll the same number, then everything happens simultaneously. So it's a much more descriptive way of doing combat. That's right. Join the Patreon if you want to see our first session of the One Ring. To be clear, we only played the One Ring for about 45 minutes. Most of this session was us talking about the game and setting up lights and cameras and audio. Well, there's a whole line of classic boxes. The very first. This is the absolute original basic set. This is by John Eric Holmes. This is the original basic set. This was released in 1977, 78. This is the very first issue of basic. This is sometimes called Blue Box Basic. And then this is Moldvay Cook, also known as BX Basic. This was released in 1981. And then a lot of people are familiar with the Red Box Basic, which was released by Menser, and that also known as BECME Basic, because there were 5 books for that: Basic, Expert, Companion, Master, and Immortal. BX D&D is only called BX D&D because, you guessed it, there was only 2 books released: Basic Set and Expert Set. %99 of OSR games are basically based off of this game. This was the game that everybody really liked and wanted, because it's, in some ways, it's the cleanest. This game is very messy. This game is a lot like OD&D from 1974. It's kind of terrible. I mean, I'm saying that with love, but it's kind of terrible. This game actually plays, and Redbox Basic changed. It made it a little bit more complicated. I'm really over how stagnant in most of the. So again, I'm not trying to be mean here. Let me see if I have it back here. I never know. Oh, here it is. Hold on a second. So what I was going to say was this game came out in 1981, but it is the follow-up to this game, which came out in 1977. And this is just a edited version of original D&D. This game came out in 1981, was owned by Wizards of the Coast. In the mid-2000s, okay, Goblin Games realized, well, other people realized that you could publish these original games, which were out of print, under the OGL. And this began what was known as the OSR. And this game was what were called retro clones. This game, lock, stock, and barrel, I mean, every single word that's in this game was reprinted as a game called Labyrinth Lord, which I have a copy of. That's what I was looking for. I just don't know where it is, like right off the cuff. But it was a very simple white cover book, very basic. But it's basically just literally a copy of this, which remember is a copy of this, which remember is a copy of original D&D. So Labyrinth Lord was printed. So then Labyrinth Lord, which is, by the way, just a literal copy. They just realized that they could legally copy the original game. It is literally a copy of this game, even the words in the text. But it was written in 1981 and things were. So then, Exalted Funeral, okay, Necrotic Gnome, printed Old School Essentials, OSE, which was lauded. And what is OSE? It's literally this game. It's just a cleaned up version of Labyrinth Lord. And it's the same mechanics. They just, they actually added some graphics and design and, made things with because if you read through this book, it's pretty brutal compared by modern standards. So they cleaned up the language and then they fixed some editing mistakes because that original Labyrinth Lord was literally just a copy of this. So this is just that game. Now, 2025, what people are saying is going to be the game of the year is Dolmenwood by Exalted Funeral. Guess what? Dolmenwood, Dolmenwood is just Old School Essentials. Old School Essentials is just Labyrinth Lord. Labyrinth Lord is just BXD&D. BXD&D is just Holmes Blue Box, and Holmes Blue Box is just an edited version of 1974 D&D. So, it's my way of saying, yes, I think the hobby is very stagnated. And that's one of the reasons. Now, that doesn't mean that you can have fun with these games. You can. But it's just turtles all the way down. Exactly. And that's not to say that Dolmenwood isn't amazing. I'm sure. I mean, it looks beautiful. I do have to dig into it. Exalted Funeral is sending me a copy, and I'm excited to look at it. And there's certainly a campaign element to Dolmenwood, which I don't want to undersell. But from a game's mechanics perspective, it's just the same game that's been being published for 50 years. So many TTRPGs are just someone's slightly house rule version of old D&D. And I'm glad we're here. And I'm glad we're talking about this. Okay? I used to respect it, but after a few years being a bit deeper in this hobby, now it's all sickening. This is what I was talking about the other day, which, it did upset some people, where I talked about what is the line between being creative and copying. When am I just what am I really serving the hobby by going, here's my version of 5th edition D&D. It's called Dungeon Time Extreme. Here are my thoughts, my takes on Daggerheart. Garblag Games is hyping up his own stuff here. By the way, we're going to do a first look on Heroic Deeds. Garblag sent me one, and one of my patrons supported it with gold tickets. So yeah, I'm interested to take a look at it. So, and we like indie RPGs on this channel. So, anyways. At least Daggerheart, and other new stuff like Trespasser aren't fucking BX. All right, fair. But I mean, I think that's being that's being unfair to those OSR games because a lot of these games are just still just derivatives of derivatives of derivatives. So I don't know. I don't want to be too callous in my approximation of it, but and again, those are still really fun games. In fact, some of the most fun games I've ever played in my life have been BXD&D, and again, not to put too fine a point on it, but this is kind of just BXD&D, but with a little bit of this is BXD&D and 5e if they had a baby. And people, it's a great book, and Kelsey Dion's an amazing person. She's made a lot of money, and people love this, and they're playing it, and they're really passionate about it. But what this is just BXD&D plus 5e. And I agree with you, Jake. Being novel for novelty's sake is also bad design. Jake, I 100% agree with you. A lot of times when I look at somebody's game, one of the things I ask myself is, why are you doing it this way? And they're like, because nobody ever used a D12 before. Okay, but how does that actually make your game better? Well, we just wanted to be different. Why? Yeah, I mean, PBTA was drawn out of the proceduralism of BXD&D, Pumpkin, and the play style that created and generated was drawn from the exposure. You could think of PBTA essentially as an emulator for BXD&D play patterns. And so this is I did a video on this, and Tundalus, who published Trespasser and was really inspired by old school D&D and 4th edition D&D. I'm not saying he felt personally attacked. He understands my stance on things, but he was like, you were kind of saying like all these games are just derivative, and I was like, yeah, they kind of are. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's just a thing. And yeah, I don't know. Do we really need another retro clone or 5e? Now we have PBTA doing actually. Apocalypse World is coming out with its 3rd edition, and Dungeon World is coming out with its 2nd edition, and all this other stuff. What's up, Sanjeev? Sanjeev says, I agree with this so much. Just so much hype for games that I left years ago because they were limited and frankly boring. Triangle Agency using the D4 just to maintain the theme. I mean, there is a certain amount of respect I have for using a D4 just to stay on theme, but yeah. You know what? You're not wrong at all. You're not wrong at all. Bouchardchin, if you have clear defined goals and you can meet them, it can end up being derivative, but that's fine because as long as you met your goals. But I think that's part of the problem. A lot of these games, it's like, well, what is your goal? My goal is to make a game. Presumably, my goal is to make a game that can capture some of the D4. My goal is to make a game that can capture some of the 5e market share. That's their goal, right? Right. Exactly, Jake, 100%. But like, if I okay, so hold on a sec here. Let's see. So Alton Brown is one of my heroes. Okay, of culinary takes. So this is Alton Brown's cookie recipe. Okay, 12 ounces of bread flour, 1 teaspoon kosher salt. Man, that's gonna make it chewy. Oh, it's a chewy cookie. Never mind. 12 ounces of bread flour, 1 teaspoon kosher salt. Now, I mean, there's a million, right? Cookie recipes out there, right? So who owns the cookie recipe? I don't know. It's just a chocolate chip cookie. But if I take Alton Brown's recipe, and instead of using 1 large egg and 1 large egg yolk, I just use 2 large eggs, is that really a new recipe? How much of this do I need to change before it's no longer Alton Brown's recipe and it's my recipe? I don't know. I think that's a tough decision to make. So, and there's another problem, which is people have an expectation over what a chocolate chip cookie should taste like. I may have a better recipe that I actually can make, but when people eat it, they go, but this isn't it. I remember my friend, this is when I was like really getting into baking in my 20s, because of Alton Brown, by the way. And I kind of was, I was kind of being snooty. I was like, everything is better when you make it at home. Everything is better when you make it yourself. And so my friend was like, I don't know. And I go, everything. And he goes, Oreo cookies, like with the cream filling. And I said, fine. And I said, so I made Oreo cookies from scratch. And he goes, this is really good, but this is not an Oreo cookie. And, and so he was basically like, he's like, it's delicious, but it's not an Oreo cookie. So I don't like it. And so it's the same thing. Like, you could create a better recipe maybe by changing a bunch of these different things, but then suddenly people don't want it because it's not a chocolate chip cookie. And so it's the same thing like with RPGs. People, on this channel, we look at all these different games, and some of these games have really cool and really innovative and really cool mechanics and really interesting things that they do with their mechanics. But then a lot of people look at those games and they go, but that's not a role-playing game. That's a board game. That's a storytelling system. Where's the skill list? I need a skill, right? Like, people have this preconceived notion over what a role-playing game is, and they might even say, this is really, really cool. Exactly, Haldred. For some people, an RPG is just BXD&D. And if it's not that, then it's not an RPG. It's, if it's derived from BX, it's a role-playing game. Otherwise, it's just sparkling role-playing, So, but yeah, I mean, you're right. I am looking for neat definitions that I can draw boxes around. And this is 100% a Ship of Theseus component as well. And that sort of drives. And now from a creative perspective, I could give a shit. But let's be completely clear here. Part of my motivation and part of the reason these conversations are happening is a financially motivated one. I am like, I love Mark and Steven over at Roll for Combat. And, Steven plays Pathfinder 2. That's his game of choice. But look, there's a reason why, they make PF2 and 5e products, and why their first non-PF2 5e product that they're making also happens to be basically Shadow Dark, right? Because, you could argue that that's like number 3, number 4 now. Roll for Combat is not going to be making, a product for Panic at the Dojo, or Wilder Feast. Could they make an awesome monster book for Wilder Feast? Yeah. Are they going to? No. Why? Because it's not going to sell them. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to sell any money. So again, I'm kind of torn between that. And so that's the financial reality. So that gets to this. I'm still hoping you do Duality Digest, which was my idea of creating a zine. Maybe we could do, who knows? Maybe we could do it 4 times a year, where we create a zine where we have new stuff for Daggerheart. Especially at the time when I thought we were going to be playing it a lot. I'm sure I was going to have a lot more thoughts and feelings and opinions about the game as I played it more. And I haven't had a chance to do that yet because of scheduling and group issues and family issues. But outside of that, does anyone in the community even want anything third party? And the answer is, I don't know. People seem to really be excited about official Daggerheart stuff coming from the mind and brain and the pen of Matt Mercer, which of course none of it is, but there's this idea that there is this sort of vetting or approval that comes through from that. But regardless, no, right. A lot of the things that I'm interested in for Daggerheart, I don't think other people are interested in it. Is Daggerheart's hope fear mechanic new or derivative? It is. I mean, again, I could be wrong, but I do know a lot of stuff from this perspective. To my mind, it is new. I mean, meta currencies aren't new. A lot of games have had meta currencies. A lot of games have had equivalent of hope points and equivalent of fear points. But the idea of taking the PBTA game and breaking it into a bi-part axis, I don't know that a game has done that. And the idea of using 2 dice and weighing the higher one versus the lower one to determine which axis. So you're adding them, right? You're doing an addition. No, the thing about the thing about FFG dice mechanics is, you know, because I played Legend of the Five Rings and I played Warhammer 3rd Edition, which are Genesis based, and it is different. I agree. It is trying to accomplish the same thing, which is to make one dice roll do multiple things and to have a success axis, but then also to have a, you know, sort of a different axis, right? Like in you know, Genesis, where you could not roll enough success symbols to succeed, but you roll a bunch of opportunity symbols, so you get some sort of benefit. But I would argue that FFG mechanics in that way are just kind of derivative of PBTA. What's interesting about the Daggerheart mechanic is that you have a simple die mechanic with 2 dice. One is just adding them, which is, did you succeed or not? And one of them is comparing them, which is, did you do it with hope or fear? So doing that in a very simplistic, quick, easy way, to my mind, is novel enough that it made me pay attention. I mean, again, maybe nothing is ever truly novel, and maybe like I'm not expecting everything to be like, I came out of the womb, I was raised by wolves, I've never even seen media, and then I came out of the woods with an RPG. It's completely no, of course not. I mean, we're all derivative of something. But from my experience of my many RPGs, it is distinctly different enough. It is distinctly improved enough. It is distinctly efficient enough that it qualifies as being pretty novel. And that's one of the reasons why it really stuck out to me, because I was like, wow, this is doing something new and better and directed and deliberate. And those are all really, really good signs that something is doing well. Let's see here. And yes, also true. Games basically have to be on Foundry, or no one will play them. Because that's the other thing I said about my Daggerheart game. I was like, oh well, I could make a new druid for Daggerheart using my ideas about what a druid should do. And guess what? No one will play it because it's not on Roll20 / what's that thing called? That horrible subscription service, Nexus? No, what's it actually called? Is it called Nexus? What's the actual brand? Nexus. Demiplane. Thank you. Demiplane. Yeah. So no, because it's not on Demiplane. And you're like, oh, well, you could do it in Foundry. Well, no, because it's not in Foundry born. Because, you know, so it's DOA in that respect. In fact, if you want to be even more crazy, see, I haven't even told you the truly crazy things. You want to hear the craziest thing? The craziest thing is, I would want each domain to interact tactilely, not tactilely. So in other words, you know, how you physically manipulate it. Different than each other domain. So that each domain not only just had different abilities, but it legitimately used a different mechanic in the way that you interacted with the card or the framework of the card. Because for me, part of a role-playing game, yes, self-confessed cynic, it's very much like a color in Magic. Part of the thing for me with a role-playing game is that it's different than so many other people. And Vin is here. Role-playing games, for most people, are a means to an end. They don't actually care about the role-playing game. All they care about is, does the role-playing game get me what I need to do? Whereas for me, I think the act of playing a role-playing game itself can be enjoyable, and that there's something to be appreciated in the mechanical beauty. In Magic the Gathering, we call this a Melvin, and I am a Melvin. I'm a Vorthos too. I love Vorthos. In fact, I'm a Vorthos Melvin. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy the entire gamut. But there are designs in Magic the Gathering. They're not flavorful or lore based, but they are just such compelling mechanical designs that you have to stand back and go, I really appreciate how awesome and cool and nuanced and interesting and mechanically efficient and rewarding this type of mechanic is. And the mechanic itself is a joy to use outside of what you're doing with it. So the closest thing I can use, and maybe a lot of role-playing game people aren't in the trades, it's like having a good tool. Now, in theory, if you have a good tool, let's say you have a good hammer, that hammer itself, some people would say, is useless. All that matters is using the hammer for a project, and does it get that project done? But if you are in the trades, you'll know that sometimes a tool is such a joy to use. It's designed so well. You'll try to find projects to use it on just because you're like, I don't even need to put up this shelf, but I'm going to put up a shelf just because I enjoy using this tool so much. So I think that's where my mindset goes when it comes to role-playing games. So, Self-Confessed Cynic says, it's just a tool and I want it to disappear. And I do agree that it's a tool, but I don't want it to just disappear. I think that there is there's a beauty, okay, to sort of the process. So, and as an example, okay, like when you're making a drawer, for like a kitchen, or like a cabinet, or a shelf. If you're making a drawer, I mean, most people know what these are. You can take the side panels of your drawer, and then you can drill in screws, right? And that will hold the box together, the drawer box. And the main problem with a drawer is when you pull on it, okay, you're basically trying to tear the box apart. So what you really need to make sure that front piece doesn't, that's going to be exposed to a lot of pulling forces, right? It's going to want to pop off. It's going to want to pop off. It's going to want to pop off. And of course, now we have modern day screws. They hold really well. And that's basically the end of the story. However, back in the day, we didn't really have great screws. And so what people had to do was they had to cut the joints in such a way that the inherent geometry of the drawer would resist pulling apart. And probably people know where I'm going with this, but this is what is called a dovetail joint. And a dovetail joint, it's called a dovetail joint because it looks like a bird's tail. But, basically the way that cabinets or drawers used to be made was the front of the drawer was connected to the sides of the drawers by these dovetail joints, which had to be carefully cut. And you can see that the front literally, physically, cannot be pulled out from the front, right? Because it's wedged the way that the cut is made. It is physically wedged in there. The actual fibers of the wood prevent it from moving out forward, right? The whole drawer would essentially have to literally rip apart the wood. It would basically never happen. This joint will essentially never fail. And that's how we have cabinets and stuff that have lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years. Now, all I'm saying is that you could look at joinery and say, yeah, I could also build this with a couple screws. And you know what? You're probably right. And if you're Vin and all you care about is getting the drawer made, getting the drawer made so that I can keep on making with my project, okay, then you're right. But I think RPGs are more like joinery. And I don't, it's not for me. It's not just about how do I stick the front of my drawer on? It's what process am I using? And is it a process that evokes beauty and aesthetic and craftsmanship and care and concern in that way. I mean, this is true for so many things. Yeah, so Mishi says, remind me of people when they're using my kitchen knives and they realize that they've never held a nice knife before. Right. And for those people who've never used a nice knife or even a sharp fucking knife, okay, people will be like, wow, I didn't cook because it's, I thought all knives were the same. You don't have to take care of them, right? They take care of themselves. They're made of metal. And it's like, no, there's such a thing as a good tool. And when you have a good tool, like a nice sharp knife, like I have, I use Shapton ceramic hybrid stones for sharpening. And I sharpen my knives. I keep my knives pretty sharp. For me, working with those tools is a joy. And if I didn't have sharp knives and like cutting vegetables was a pain in the ass, maybe I wouldn't cook as much. But I love cooking and chopping because I'm like, yeah, this tool is great to use. I can't wait to make meals with it. And yes, the purpose of the knife is just to make meals, right? So all I care about is the meal, right? All I care about is the meal. That's kind of what Vin is saying. I don't care about the tool. I care about the meal. What I'm saying is I do care about the tool. I care about the process. I care about how we get from A to B and the methodology. So that's why I sort of have that respect. And that's why I'm sort of a Melvin and a Vorthos. Looks like we have some people who know their shit. Shout out to Shapton. Shout out to Shapton from Mishi Night as well. Shout out to Outdoor 55 who introduced me to Shapton. I do not know Outdoors 55, but yeah, Shapton's. I was introduced to Shapton by Rob Kossman. Rob Kossman is a Canadian woodworker out of New Brunswick, and he has a YouTube channel. He's a woodworker, and that's. Oh, okay. They make knife sharpening. Yeah, and he introduced me to Shapton because yes, he's a hand tool woodworker, so he uses planes, chisels, and the like, and he hand sharpens on Shapton stones. So that's how I learned about it. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, there's certainly a value in being able to be flexible and versatile. There's definitely there. You are completely correct about that. But I don't even remember how we got on this topic of conversation. But all I was trying to say is that I do think that system does matter. And I do think that it's not just about getting an experience. It's about the actual process of doing it. Now, Pumpkin says, I'm definitely a Melvin, not so much a Vorthos. And again, I apologize when I use Magic the Gathering terminology, but, it's so weird about this channel. Like, some people will be like, oh, cool, he talks about Star Wars, and I know Star Wars, but then we'll talk about Magic the Gathering. People will be like, stop talking about Magic the Gathering terminology so much. I hate the board games, mostly because I feel that the board game has taken it too far and that the tool is now unusable because they have focused on the aesthetic over the usability. Okay, and the distinction I would say there is, look at this beautiful knife. It's made of 20,000 layers of Damascus, and they made it out of da-da-da-da-da. And you're like, but is it sharp and does it hold an edge? No, it's not sharp and it doesn't hold an edge. So at that point, what are we even doing here? I want the knife to be the best knife that it can be. And it can be aesthetic, and we can appreciate it for its value, but it still has to functionally be a tool, and it has to do what that tool's doing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I want some Spartan ugly thing. A tool can be a beautiful piece of art in its own right. But yeah, but I think that the board games have gotten too, over the top in that respect. But Pirate Borg is very popular, and I'm not the person to ask about that. Again, I do think that I think a lot of these really super ultra light games, Karn and the board games and Karn and all these other things that are sort of derived from this, are just a reaction to people who have just been playing such rules heavy games and such like almost domineering mentalities of their game masters of like the rules, and they're just like it's like an overcorrection. It's an overcorrection. That's all right, Jacob. It's 7:00. I'm gonna dip out now because I'm gonna go get some coffee and stuff like that. So, I feel like this makes draw steel a surgical scalpel, maybe a really nice bench saw. We're out here streaming Dr. D Hart. But I am about to close off. And in theory, we're going to be back tonight in 12 hours. We'll see. I don't know what I'm going to be talking about. Vin, are you going to go to bed here soon? Are you going to be awake in 12 hours? Right? It'll be what, 9 a.m. in 12 hours for you? I don't know what we could talk about, man. But Bob's not free, so we can't do Land of Eam. Oh, 11 a.m. All right. Right, you're plus 4. No. You're plus 16? Why did I think you were less? I thought you were like plus. Are you guys on like daylight savings time or something? Or are we different? Anyways. You're GMT plus 11. Okay. I don't know. For some other reason, I had in my mind that you were like plus 10 or plus 9, but yeah. There you go. Pumpkin just got home from work. Long story short, am I going to create something for the 5e audience? Am I going to create something for the Shadow Dark audience? Am I going to create something for the Daggerheart audience? Probably not. Will I spend a lot of time trying to make a game that is completely, totally unpopular like Wilderfeast into a mega game that like 15 people from my Patreon who already pay me money might play? Yes. And why? Because I'm bad at business and I like what I like. Sorry. But there you go. Math Guy Dave's on his way to Disney World. Holidays in Orlando. Can you bring up the Dungeons of Drakkenheim Kickstarter? I can. You mean the Daggerheart one? Yeah. Dungeons of Drakkenheim. So you have a massive company in Dungeons. Actually, you know what's crazy about Dungeons of Drakkenheim is that like this Ghostfire Gaming, which is the Dungeon Dudes, like they had this original Dungeons of Drakkenheim campaign Kickstarter. Like, when did they do that? It was from 2021. That's when that was. That's when that got launched. It was 2021. And the estimated delivery was April 2022. And I think it just got delivered this year. So I think it took them like years, I think, to deliver this, I think. I could be wrong. So the original one got 1.2 million, and the Daggerheart one got 460,000 from 3,800 backers. But I mean, it's not nothing, but I mean, it is cool that they're working with Mike. I mean, Mike's definitely goated. You got it on nearly on time? All right. Again, I didn't order the original one. I just remember hearing that they had all sorts of delays because they like massively tried to make too much and put too much into it or something. In any case, let's see here. We got 500 backers at the deluxe set level. Yeah, they did a bunch of minis and stuff like that. Nice. Yeah, I mean, somebody just recently left me a comment in one of my YouTube videos. I had done a YouTube video a while ago called Daggerheart is Dead, Long Live Daggerheart. Because I was basically saying, this was after the Critical Role announcement. And I basically said, this is not good for this is not good for the game. And I go, but I still think people are going to play it. And I still think I'm very interested in playing it. And I think the game is really, really, really cool. And I think that's great. So, again, Daggerheart is dead, long live Daggerheart. And someone left a comment recently and they said, so do you care to rethink this terrible take now that the first expansion is on the way and support for Daggerheart is stronger than ever? And I don't know that I agree that that is true. So my question is, no, I'm not going to I'm not going to redo my take because I still think that the game is going to, I think the game is going to struggle. Check. We're going to the data. So my term doesn't have enough terms. Let's take a look over the last 12 months. All right. So this is interest over time. So the way that Google Trends works is this is taking Google search data over the last, and this is just the United States. So let's go worldwide. Same chart. So this is relative to its peak. Okay, so interest in Daggerheart peaked on June 15th, the week of June 15th, 2025. And so that is marked at 100, right? So this is an indexed chart, not an absolute chart, it's a relative chart. In other words, this represents peak intensity for this 12-month period. So you can obviously see that in the build-up to Daggerheart, no one was interested in it at all. And then very rapidly, as we approached the launch, it shot to the heights. My guess, someone could probably look, is this the week that Critical Role announced what they were using? My guess is it is, because it kind of peaked again and people were doing a lot of searching for it. And then you can see what happened. Now, has it gone back down to zero like what it was before the game even came out? No. But you can see that it is now, so this is August 3rd, the week of August 3rd. So I am 99% sure that this peak is because of reaction to the Critical Role announcement. So anyways, my point is that happened. The announcement happened. So you can see this was almost as interesting as the peak. It was 97. And then interest has gone down. And by the way, they also are doing they did 2 Kickstarters. They did their class Kickstarter, and they also did, of course, Hope and Fear Kickstarter. Show me on the graph where those were. Maybe here? It's hard to say. So again, is it like the game is dead? No. I mean, if the game was down here, like back down in the ones and the twos and the threes, yeah, that would probably be, pretty bad. But relatively speaking, the game's interest has definitely, it dropped significantly and it has plateaued at this level. Now, is that bad or is that no? I don't know. I mean, and generally speaking, if I had to trend this, I would say, aside from this little peak here in November, it is kind of slightly trended. How is Draw Steel tracked? So there's Draw Steel. Now remember, this is relative to Draw Steel. This means that Draw Steel reached its peak searching like a couple weeks ago. This is when it released, by the way. It was during Gen Con. So this right here, this was the release week. For whatever reason, it popped in popularity from from an interest perspective just a couple weeks ago, which is very interesting. Not the release. I mean, I'm assuming this has cracked the sun. But that's really crazy. So, and then if we really want to be interesting, we can compare the two. So red is Daggerheart. This is the now we're on the same. Everything is being indexed to the most popular thing, which was Daggerheart at this time. So you can see and compare Daggerheart versus Draw Steel. So Daggerheart is in red, Draw Steel is in blue. So someone said August 21st. So that means I do not know what caused this peak. Now, again, it's not like a peak, but something happened. I mean, unless people were getting really, what my guess is Critical Role announced it during this week that they would be using what they were going to be using for campaign 4. My guess is this peak was just the hype leading up to it and people speculating. And then they announced that they were, doing it, and then interest in Daggerheart fell. Now, look, I'm an analyst. I could probably need more data points, but if you had asked me the proximate cause for this fall, I would say the announcement that was made the week of the 21st, right? So, anyways, and then not to put too fine of a point on it. So that is Dungeons and Dragons in green. So now you may be wondering, where's Daggerheart and Draw Steel? Oh, they're on here. They're still there. They're just a rounding error down here at the bottom. There they are. They're sticking out there a little bit. I mean, this is the reality of the world that we live in, people. So, basically, I mean, literally not even a blip. People want to add Pathfinder? Sure, why not? It's going to want the car, so I need the role-playing game. There you go. So there's number 1. There's number 2. There's everybody else. And that's number 2. So, Jacko, by the way, confirming August 2nd, Critical Role announced Campaign 4 was happening without saying which game. So now that makes a little bit more sense. If we go back to just the Daggerheart one, this spike was probably related exactly to that. Yeah, so this spike here happened because Critical Role announced Campaign 4 was happening, and people were like, "Oh, is it going to be Daggerheart? Will Campaign 4 be Daggerheart? Will Campaign 4 be Daggerheart? Will Campaign 4 be Daggerheart?" Which is probably what people were searching for that week, which is why we saw that spike. And then they did their announcement, and they said, "We were playing 5th edition D&D," and then the interest in Daggerheart immediately plummeted. So that makes sense. Now, let's have a little bit more fun here. Let's remove this. And let's remove this. So let's add Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. This is going to be from the last 12 months. And then let's add, what's it called? Expedition. This one. So that's interesting. There you go. So red is Claire Obscure Expedition 33. So you can kind of see, a game that's, is highly in the zeitgeist, a video game. It had Dragonbane, or it wouldn't even show up. It would literally, Dr. D Hart, it would literally be a 0. I'm not even kidding. Yeah, it's less than 1. It's less than 1 at all points. Less than 1, 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 less than 1. Oh, Pumpkin. 100%. You're absolutely right. The problem when a game is unpopular is that does have a, that has an effect. Role-playing games are not solo games. Role-playing games require a group of people to play with. If the game is unpopular, you can't find people to play with, and it doesn't matter that the game is good, you can't play it. So, right. So my point is, if I were to make whatever game I wanted to, it would be whatever. But I have to make, it's not just art for art's sake, okay? I need to make certain financial considerations if I'm going to spend the time and the money. Let's be clear here. There would be money spent if I designed something that it would need to return on investment, at least in the next, 12 to 18 months, right? Because let's say I started working on something and I did the Kickstarter, in the summer or the fall of 2026, and it did, let's say it did $100,000. Okay, maybe $200,000. That would be great. That would be amazing. That would be awesome, huge. I mean, obviously you spend a lot of money on art, marketing, shipping, printing, or whatever all that other crap is. But that little bump of money would be enough for me to, be like, okay, I can scrape by a living. But if I put a bunch of time and money and effort into something and then it's like it did $20,000, I can't afford to make that kind of gambling, What's up, Roberto? Do you like or at least know the Symbaroum RPG? What's the Symbaroum RPG? I've never heard of it. Yeah, no, I own it. It's okay. Dark Forest. But no, we've never covered it officially on the channel, so that's fine. You are right. We have not covered it. I've played it. It's fine. I like it better than Vaesen. What IP can we milk a 5e supplement out of? I mean, yeah, kind of. That's true. Solo games have popped off because people are like, look, I have to play by myself. Everyone else sucks, or they only want to play 5e, or I have no friends, period. Does Shadow Dark dent the trends? That's a great question. That is a great question, Math Guy Dave. Let's actually look at that. All right, let's pull this up here. Get rid of my ugly mug. Okay, so this is the last 12 months. I'm actually going to go to the last 5 years. This is D&D, by the way, over the last 5 years. What was this? You mean it reached maximum popularity at the beginning of 2023? What could that possibly have been? Which is an indication, by the way, that Google Trends doesn't necessarily mean good news. It could be bad news, right? It just means interest. It just means search engine. Yeah, doesn't even dent the D&D line. Brutal. Sorry, Shadow Dark. We had hopes for you. All right. Well, D&D is an 85,000-pound gorilla. So let's go to Pathfinder and compare it to Pathfinder. No, still nothing. Maybe let me just use Shadow Dark as a term. See if we get anything different from that. No, it's the same. So there you go. Even compared to Pathfinder, it is nothing. Yes, you're right. PJ is correct. You know what, PJ? You have the heart of a true analyst, where you're like, hey, it went from 0 to less than 1, so that is technically a trend. But see, but this is my point. It's one thing to support a massive, huge infrastructure of dozens of employees with a huge corporate apparatus. But if I did a Kickstarter and it made like 1.2 million or like 2 point whatever million, like the Dungeon Coaches did, and people actually enjoyed it, and it got delivered on time, like, I mean, again, I don't know Alan personally, but I got to imagine the $2 million he made. Yeah, he doesn't get to keep all that. He's got to spend it on art. He's got to spend it on shipping. But let's be clear here. He made money. That's okay. But that's life changing. So And especially me, it's not like I have no, I got my Patreon and stuff like that. If I did a Kickstarter and it made $200,000, I mean, that would be fairly life-changing for me. Well, the problem with the Cosmere is going to get conflated with, the I mean, here we got the Cosmere role-playing game. No bump. Nothing. Not even compared to Pathfinder. All right. Battle of Cosmere versus Shadowdark. Here, let's go. All right. Well, we are looking at 5 years, so let me look at the last year. Can I look at a custom range? No. All right. We'll just look at the last year. All right. Red is Cosmere. Blue is Shadowdark. So Shadowdark. Cosmere releases. Yay. So there you go. I mean, it didn't plummet to literal zero. I like that people are like, I'm like, you guys can do this stuff yourself. All right, DC 20 doesn't even get recognized as a game, so that's not good. DC 20, draw steel, and all right, there you go. So Daggerheart in green, draw steel in yellow, DC 20 and Cosmere down here at the bottom. So in the Cosmere versus DC 20 versus Draw Steel versus Daggerheart was unmistakably the king. Then they announced that they weren't going to do it, and it lost a huge amount of its interest in, you want to call that market share. Now again, Google trend interest is not the same thing as market share. Let's be very clear here. Draw Steel did have a peak, so they've kind of, because Draw Steel and Daggerheart were kind of keeping this pace side by side, but Cosmere and DC 20 basically never even got off the ground. I mean, DC 20 even had more. I mean, Cosmere did peak here and there, but DC 20 sometimes had equivalent search interest to the Cosmere role playing game. So, and that's Brandon Sanderson versus the Dungeon Coach. So, good for the Dungeon Coach. Is the fact that Draw Steel is currently at its lowest point since release a bad sign? I don't know. That's a great question. It is at its lowest point. It is since release and its initial build-up. Kendall, it could be a factor. It definitely could be a factor from the analysis perspective. But, so is the same thing with Daggerheart. Exactly. Daggerheart is, I think it was lowest, near lowest. It's tied for its lowest point here. Google search interest does tend to go down in December. So, but yeah. Correct. This is not absolute. This is all relative to each other. Again, this is an indexed search term. These are all relative. You basically take the highest absolute value and then everything gets divided by that highest absolute value. So everything is indexed to this point right here when Daggerheart reached 100. That is a relative interest unit, which is why when we put different things on here, these charts change dramatically. The shapes don't change, but the absolute scale does change because it's all relative. But again, this is also literally, Google internet search traffic interest. It's not the same thing necessarily as who's playing these games and who's buying these games, how much money they're making. It is a proxy. Do I think that these trends are probably correlated with interest in sales? Yes. But yeah. Shadowdark wouldn't even show up gridlock on the scale, basically. And my point is, each of these games made millions of dollars. Now, is that enough to support an entire industry? No. Is that enough to support a small independent content creator like Kelsey Dion or Alan, his last name escapes me? Yeah. In the case of MCDM, it was a couple of $1 million. And obviously he has a bigger team and, paying people. So, okay, that $1 million is more, but it does get split more ways. But, it's fine. how popular are Sanderson books versus something like Claire Obscura? I mean, that's we're just drawing, scraping the bottom of the barrel now. Although I do kind of want to look at Shadow Dark. I also want to look at just and I want to look over the last 5 years. Okay, so Kelsey doesn't even enter into the equation. It came up as a recommended. I just wanted to see it. So yeah, so here's it. So compare this is Shadow Dark. I just wanted to bring this up because I wanted you guys to understand what when Stephen Glicker is talking about Shadow Dark, you guys have been looking at these charts with me. Okay. Look at how this chart is different. Do you see how this chart is different? Right? This is what a trend up looks like. So the interest in Shadow Dark, right? Number one, this is the last 5 years. So this peak here, this isn't even when the game was released. This is when they were doing their Western reaches. This was their second Kickstarter. Okay, this was the second Kickstarter. This is the original Kickstarter back here. This is the second Kickstarter. And this is what a trend upward looks like. So this is when we talk about like why Shadow Dark is solid as an independent game. It's because of this and things like this. So what's up, Rules Are Cool? Long time no see. Still rocking that profile pic, I see. Good choice. Anyways, all right. I'm gonna head out. That was a fun little analysis to end the stream. I should be on later tonight. Maybe with Vin. I don't know. I got to figure out what we're gonna do. I thought we were gonna cover Lands of Eam, but Bob is mad, and well, not Bob. Bob's not mad. He just wants to be there when we do it. So, I will respect and honor my friend and coworker Bob. So yeah, what's ahead for me? I don't know. I do want to say real quick, thank you to everybody who unexpectedly popped in today and helped out and threw a little money my way. But in particular, I do want to call out and single out the self-confessed cynic Vin, who was so gracious and so sweet to generously donate a substantial tip so that I could pre-order my deluxe leather-bound elite new Brandon Sanderson approved produced Wheel of Time Eye of the World collector's box or collector's book. I think it looks amazing, and I'm super excited that I get to do that. But shout out to everybody. Shout out to Haldred and Sean and Jake. Shout out to Jake and Goblins and Androids for all their support as well. But I really appreciate all of you. But again, we'll be back literally later today to keep talking. And then who knows? Wednesday, I think I'm going to be on Roll for Combat. I think Dungeons and Discourse is going to be on there. So we'll see how that goes. Thursday is Christmas Day, but Thursday's a stream day. So I might be streaming Thursday night. Like I said, we got to talk about role-playing games. There's so much to talk about. But if I don't see you, because you're going to be busy with family and friends and all that other stuff, because of the holiday season, I say to you, I hope you have a wonderful, joyous Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, winter solstice season. And we'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call.